75 years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
Wake up!
Wake up, will you, pal?
They need a wake-up call.
Someday this country's gonna wake up.
Wake up and smell the coffee.
Yeah, I probably should turn the old mic on. One thing I do really enjoy about working alongside Mark Dykton is tremendous reentries. You know, there's always a thought behind the reentries. As we begin this Wednesday morning, you know, I said to him on Monday, I thought, you know, man, are we not going to have a Micah Abraham scoop and score highlight bringing us into Monday's show as football is back? Matt Gay from 54 yards. You know, that Matt Taylor call could have been electric there. Just missed.
1 yard Evan Hull run.
Sure. Yeah, Evan Hull back
up the middle
for the first time in a year.
Yeah.
Mark, I thought based off the somberness to the last 90 minutes yesterday, I thought we might get Amazing Grace to lead off
Well,
today's show.
I'm not going to lie. We went to the Indiana State Fair yesterday where we were walking by all the games, and there was like the catch the goldfish thing. Like, I wonder if that's where Kevin
Was Don there?
Was it the ring toss? Was it the drop the ball in the bowl?
It was drop the ball in the bowl. I swear the balls
40
are,
balls for $5. That's a hell of a deal.
I swear the balls are greased.
Well, yeah.
Something along those lines there.
You saying there's a carny who's greasing the balls there? Is that
Well,
what you're
I'm
saying
not
early
crazy.
on in
Watch
the
out
morning?
there.
Is that what you're
I'm
saying?
not calling out the integrity of Don, but I'm not calling out the
Are
integrity
you saying
of Don.
Don or Dawn?
Don.
Don.
D-O-N.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
I'm just making sure. By the way, I did love our text from Mark Dykton. Traffic is hell right now as he tried to go to the fair yesterday at 5:30 in the afternoon.
I'm not
My
kidding.
God, man.
I'm not kidding. It rivaled the Indy 500. It was 2
man.
hours to get in. 2 hours of
No,
traffic.
it wasn't.
Yes,
It was 2 hours of traffic.
We left at 5. We did not get in until after 7.
Oh, my goodness. That makes
Gosh,
my
that
body
sounds
hurt.
like hell. You should have just parked at one of our
It was
houses
too late.
and walked.
It was
No
too late.
kidding.
We were already in it. We were like, we're in it
You
now.
were committed. You were in the
Yeah.
line. There was no turning around there. We've all been there.
Ash was like, should we just go to the Indians game? I'm like, no, we're going to the fair. We've already put in 90 minutes. We're seeing this thing through.
Well, Mark, thank you for that thought there. You know, I will say part of me is a bit torn here on this Wednesday morning as we laid Sweetie Fish to rest. For those that missed it yesterday, the great life, the 10-day life at the Bowen household for Sweetie Fish coming to an end.
She hit the over. The over-under was 9.5, so congratulations.
She did.
We cashed
Shout
out.
to listener Harley. Harley chimed in and said his daughter kept the State Fair fish alive for 2 months.
Oh, man. 2 months.
Like,
He's running a hospital over there.
Are you feeding the fish St. Elmo's every
Holy
night?
cow.
How in the world is that possible? Should I feel proud as a father as I get choked up here?
I know.
How well Rosie handled it? Or should I feel disappointed that she wasn't more considerate for the passing fish?
Well, I think it tells you into the future that, you know, she's not going to get attached to a fish in 10 days, at least to the point to where there's going to be a breakdown or a meltdown.
And that goes for the boyfriends too down the road, or no?
Listen, that's on you, brother. I have no idea how to navigate those circles. Nor will I have to on that side, at least.
The burial did occur last
Well,
night in the Bowen backyard.
I'm sorry to hear
I will
that.
probably mow over Sweetie the fish here in about 7 to 8 hours.
Is that what you did? I mean, I haven't seen your backyard, so you have a little spot of dirt. You just kind of
We did-
move some dirt aside,
yeah.
or what?
Right between the two thorniest bushes we could find is
damn
where
right.
Sweetie Fish
Nice.
is laid to rest. Good Wednesday morning to you. I am Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney alongside Mark Dykton right there. Thank you for the amazing grace, Mark, on that. Coming up, 11 hours from
Taps.
now. Taps, thank you, sorry. 11 hours from now, the Colts will be on the practice field at Grand Park. It will be a long session tonight, 6 to 8:20. Is that? No, 8 o'clock tonight, 7:20. Tomorrow night with the Arizona Cardinals in town. JMV will be up there each of the next 2 days. So, again, these are the final 2 days of Colts training camp at Grand Park, and it will be, I think I said this about the Broncos, they have the most obscure roster in the NFL. Could you name 5 Arizona Cardinals?
No. I could name Trey McBride, right? Marcus Golden hung it up, I think, this training camp.
Nothing
I
says
could
you
have
play a
named
lot
him.
of fantasy football like
Hey,
the ability
listen,
to name Trey
I've
McBride.
been sitting Trey McBride for a year and a half on the bench, and it's time for him to blossom with Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray.
Yes.
I mean, literally,
Marvin Harrison
Jr.
Jr.
I think I could name Murray, Harrison Jr., Buda Baker. I would ask if James Conner's still on the
Yes,
team.
James
Conner's there.
Zach Pascal, I know that he's there.
Is Chase Edmonds still
But
there?
let's be honest, like that's where I
no,
stop.
I mean, yeah, it's that you can't name. If you can name 5, you're not naming 10. You're not naming 12.
Is Matt Prater still the kicker?
I don't think so. I actually think the
Desmond
Cardinals.
Ritter's there as the backup.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I think the Cardinals
Desmond
could
Ridder,
bounce
Clayton
back a little
Tune.
bit.
Really?
Yeah, I don't hate Kyler Murray. I think Gannon's a good coach. I think Gannon's a little bit. Listen, you know what I think. I think Gannon and Shane Steichen, did a lot for the Eagles over a couple-year period to make Nick Sirianni look maybe a little bit better.
See,
than
there's
he was.
there's the rub
and of
there.
course, do we know if tickets are gone for this? By the way,
I thought I looked.
I was
Mark,
going to look here.
I'll check again, but
Will
I
you
thought they were
double-check
still
this?
available.
Yeah, I looked on. I think it was Monday. Maybe I looked, and it did appear tickets were still available. At least I could add them to my shopping cart for what it's worth.
Well, I'm the same thing. I was able to add them. I have 20 minutes to purchase. I'm not going to purchase, but same thing. So it looks like tickets are
It is
available.
a $5 ticket, and I guess this will probably be more of a conversation for tomorrow. It does sound like tomorrow night we could get some rain in the Indy area. Again, tomorrow is the 6 to 7:20 practice. I'm trying to think, in the history of joint practices at Grand Park, there might have been one time they had to go indoors, but I can't remember many times. Obviously, these are the most crowded practices.
Yeah, that would
you're
be a
gonna
bummer. Yeah,
it
big
would
time.
be a huge bummer on that end. And I know this is one of the annual conversations, and Andy, you certainly felt it with your Giants a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. Will there be fights? And how intense is it going to be?
I was going to ask you.
There is an element you would think, like, okay, Jonathan Gannon, Nick Sirianni. For those unfamiliar, Jonathan Gannon was a Colts assistant under Frank Reich. I don't know if people recall that. 2018 to 2020, he was the cornerbacks coach here in Indy. And then,
He's a good coach.
Like what happened with, Sirianni leaving to Philly, Gannon left to go there to become the defensive coordinator. And then as Shane Steichen left Philly to become the head coach here in Indy, after that Super Bowl, it was Jonathan Gannon going to Arizona. You would like to think that Gannon and Steichen would be on the same page of like, all right, this is where we're at with fights. And, whatever that is, we'll kick guys out of practice. I mean, the Giants and Lions, correct me if I'm wrong, was that a $200,000 fine?
Yeah, each one of them got fined. I mean,
Can you imagine
they
if
stopped
some
both
like
practices.
88th dude on the roster causes a $200,000 fine?
Yeah, well, with those two teams, it wasn't. I mean, it was the starters. It was the starters on both sides of the ball. Daniel Jones was involved. Malik Neighbors was heavily involved. So for them, it wasn't man 92. It was man 2, if you will, with those two teams. Did you happen to see? I guess. Oh, and I need to look this up. The Patriots this week are having scrimmages as well. They're having
Drake May's getting sacked a lot,
well,
right?
there it is. There's Drake May. Did you see Mike Reese of ESPN reported that Gerard Mayo, who of course is the new head coach there in New England, he told his players about, did you see this? About fights in joint practice. If you're a starter and you fight in joint practice, you're playing the next entire preseason game. If you're a backup and you fight, you won't play in the preseason game at all. How about that? Oh, it's pretty hardcore.
I think I like that.
I think I do too. Although I don't mind seeing the fights as well. As long as no one is injured, and oftentimes they're not. It's just, dudes slapping and punching each other while they're wearing helmets with even more protective gear for concussions.
We will see how things go the next 2 nights. Again, this is one of the, I would say, more pivotal points of the month of August. 13 days away from roster cuts. Just to remind everyone, it is just one big cut. They've changed it up a lot over the last handful of years. At one point here in the last couple of years, they used to do the 5-person cut, like 90 to 85, I think to 80, and then 80 to 53. Now they just do the one big one. That is Tuesday, August 27th, 90 to 53. A question when Stephen Holder joins us at 8. Do we need to talk about Jelani Woods on the bubble?
Well, I think we need to. I was going to ask Holder, and I'll ask you. We do this NCAA tournament time. Like, who is the most bubble team? Last year, it was who? Maybe St. John's in Indiana State.
I was going to say, shout out to the Sycamores.
Well, it was for two different, one in the Big East and one obviously in a mid-major conference. But to me, the two teams that were the most bubble-licious teams last year in the NCAA tournament, Indiana State and probably St. John's. Who's the most bubble-licious guy right now on the roster? If is someone in the secondary, if you're the Colts, and again, we still have nearly 2 weeks.
Well, and I think what you have to remember about roster cuts, part of it is who is easiest to sneak through. When you are doing, I guess if you want to make the NCAA tournament analogy, The NIT wants attractive teams.
Sure.
They want Indiana
Sure.
State at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Like that, I mean, they got a great gift in that. Robert Morris all of a sudden becoming an NIT team doesn't really do a whole lot until they upset Kentucky on their home floor. But, when you get, let's play out the tight end debate right now. Because I do think there are some of my colleagues that would cut Jelani Woods right now.
I think so. Yeah.
I don't think I'm one of them.
100%. And I agree with you. He'll get picked up.
But, let's play out a Jelani Woods versus Will Mallory. Will Mallory has been injured a decent amount through his first couple seasons, so I don't think you can play the injury card with him, and I know some would play it with Jelani Woods. Woods was a third-round pick. Mallory was a fifth-round pick. Woods, if you want to look at it, has maybe had a game or two of note here in his NFL career. I don't think Mallory's had that. Again, they've been in the league for, 3 years for Woods now. This will be 2 years for Mallory.
There's not a lot of data on either guy. Let's just be honest. There's not.
But I think if you answered the question, who's easiest to sneak through the waiver wire, it would probably be Mallory than Woods.
Agreed.
So, again, that is part of the equation. And, for example, I did the exercise last night. If I'm debating keeping Jelani Woods or Trevor Denbo, who's easier to get to your practice squad?
Right.
So
probably Denbo. No, I think Jelani Woods because
it's
of his
a little
measurables.
bit of a popularity contest.
It is.
So
it is. I mean, there's no,
that's-
and you're still projecting, right? You're still projecting on a year and a half. This guy could be, fill in the blank.
And now with Woods, of course, he falls in the category of he was not, a Shane Steichen coaching staff acquisition. I do think Shane is intrigued by him, but that's another element that you have to factor in. So we're starting to get closer to that. And again, 2 key evaluation points will begin tonight and tomorrow up at Grand Park.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I want to see tonight. I know we'll dive into it probably a little deeper later on. To me, things like I want to see the O-line win. I mean, these matter. Again, I've been told that these practices, and I think this is the vital thing if you're a Colts fan, we get told these practices matter more than a preseason game. I mean, they basically do by who is going to and who is not going to be playing in the preseason game over the weekend against Arizona. So I'm like, fine, okay, so these next 2 days with these long practices, they mean more to coaches in coaches' eyes than a preseason game. Great. Then, I want to see things like the offensive line's got to be better than 2 yards a rush, right? I mean,
Arizona's defense was horrific last year.
They were. I mean,
so I think that is something to remember. When I say obscure rosters for Denver and Arizona, that means you would like to see the Colts. I mean, we do not talk about, I know you're, I guess, somewhat high on Arizona. I don't think anyone's talking about Denver or Arizona as a playoff team.
No, not
People
as a playoff
are talking
team,
about
but
the Colts as a playoff team.
I think the Cardinals can be back to being a competent team if Kyler Murray's healthy. That's what
fine,
I think.
But what I'm getting at by bringing up all that stuff is the Colts should be better than Denver and Arizona.
They
and
should.
If, again, it was a small sample size, I didn't think the Colts were, by any means, overwhelmingly better than Denver starters in the one quarter we saw on Sunday. I would like to think that, again, tonight and tomorrow night, it would be a tad different on that end.
I will say this about the final cuts as well. To me, there's not a lot of, I don't know. I mean, you may disagree with this. You really have to get into the weeds of the third and the fourth and, the guys at the back end of the roster. And I think there are some Colts fans that eat that up, that absolutely love that and care. And then there's other Colts fans that probably aren't paying attention quite nearly as much. But, we had Joel A. Erickson from the Star on yesterday, and I thought he made a pretty good point. Samson Ebakon's injured a couple weeks ago, defensive line. We haven't seen Raekwon Davis. So, I mean, right now, we talk about Josh Downs and his injury. Are we expecting Raekwon to play game 1? I mean, I'm to the point to where I'm almost not.
Are you expecting him to be on the roster?
Well, I think, again, all of these are good questions. So, if something happens that if he doesn't make the roster, if he's not on the team, a guy like Raekwon, or if he's going to miss some time and they, can put him on some sort of list, or if he just straight up misses a week or two, there's an opportunity for a guy early on. I know, at corner, he made the big play the other night with the strip and then the score. Mike Abraham at corner. We kind of talked a little bit about him yesterday. What is he? To me, even back in June, you had him having a roster spot, a 6th-rounder out of Marshall, and he's even more cemented himself. So, I don't know. I think there's still, listen, there's going to be injuries this week. There's going to be someone that gets injured that final week, that preseason game. We saw Josh Downs go down with a stupid play when you look like in practice. So there's going going to be more attrition the next couple weeks. But, right now I look at the defensive line kind of clearing up potentially a couple spots, and that could help somebody at least initially make the roster, specifically at tight end. But I think at some point there needs to be probably a difficult decision made at tight end on guys. Jelani's difficult because you've hung with Jelani Woods and you want to see if you can get any of the payoff, don't you? I mean, that's kind of where you are with the guy. But listen, if Steichen doesn't think he's going to get that payoff, there's no reason for him to be on the team.
Yeah, I just don't think you're in this massive urgency mode or 53-man roster wise to all of a sudden say goodbye to Jelani Woods. I sit here and don't think he's very high on the depth chart. But again, I don't think you're in dire straits that you all of a sudden just need to cut ties with a dude that has been in the league for 2 years and one of the years he missed. So obviously a storyline we'll monitor here over the next 2 weeks.
Matt Prater is the kicker, by the way. Matt Prater is
still the kicker.
Hey, listen,
I always liked him as my fantasy kicker
right now,
because
brother.
he'd make a few from 55.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to stash away.
There is a guy on Arizona's roster, if you go out there, his name's Keitrell Clark. I don't know if he's active right now, if he's injured. I followed him at Louisville. And if there's a guy that's going to trash talk Michael Pittman and might get into it with somebody from the wide receiver corps, it would be a guy named Keitrell Clark. Just watch that name if we're talking fights tomorrow morning.
If I'm not mistaken, I think former Purdue linebacker Marcus Bailey is with the Cardinals now after a stop in Cincinnati. We will give out a 4-pack of tickets to Fever and Mercury this Friday night. That is a 7:30 tip as the Fever get back to their schedule. 14 games to go, 9 at home. I want to say of the 14, 6 of those 14 are against the 4 bottom teams. Again, 8 of the 12 teams make the playoffs in the WNBA. So you'll have nearly half of your remaining games against the bad teams in the league. So after a brutal start to the schedule, with the Fever restarting coming up on Friday, they will have, at least on paper, much more manageable. It is kind of wild to look at the schedule. The Mercury, again, that's who the Fever will take on Friday. That's Diana Taurasi and company. They had 3 Olympians, 3 United States Olympians. They will play a game on Thursday.
I know.
So think about this.
I
mean,
know.
They
play
played their
Sky.
gold medal game on Sunday.
Yeah.
They probably, got back to Phoenix late Monday? I'm trying to even, guess here. Then you're back on a plane to Chicago.
Right.
Today.
Yeah.
And then you play a back-to-back.
That's a back-to-back, yeah.
Out of the gate. I know, obviously, the WNBA schedule can't, predict,
and
who's making.
And Taurasi didn't play too much, but she played a little, and still the travel and being, away from home
right,
for 2
obviously,
weeks.
Brittany Griner, and I'm forgetting who the other Olympian was, they played a little bit more for them. But Fever, a slight favorite coming up Friday night again at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, and then Sunday afternoon, the Seattle Storm. So Lynn Dunn going to join us here coming up at 9 o'clock.
Have you followed any of this unrivaled, this 3x3 league that is going to be in the WNBA offseason, so some of these players don't have to go overseas? And a lot of them do. We had Grace Berger in studio before the season. She talked about being overseas and everything else. Caitlin Clark was asked about it yesterday.
And she didn't deny it, right?
She didn't deny it. She's just said basically, hey, I'm focused. Now, does she need the money? Is the money going to be worth it? Does it keep you in basketball shape? I don't know. I tend to think people that have money, and Caitlin Clark wants more money. It's a way to get more money. But there is a women's basketball 3-on-3 league that's going to run basically in the offseason for the WNBA. And I guess Caitlin Clark, I was going to ask Lynn Dunn this at 9 o'clock. I guess contractually she's allowed to do that, right? If she wanted to go play even overseas, she's allowed to do that if she wanted to.
Yeah, I would assume. Now, this is not. Is this what was the guy who offered her $5 million to play in the Big Three League?
Ice Cube.
Yeah, Ice Cube.
It has nothing to do with Ice Cube.
Okay, so
Who's
this is
the
not
guy?
Ice Cube.
That's
Yeah.
Ice Cube to you, sir. What do you mean a guy? That's
For
not
some
just
reason,
some guy.
I was picturing Flavor Flav because did you see Flavor Flav sent a bronze clock to Jordan Childs?
Did he really?
I'm sure that'll really make her feel
That's
better.
going to make her feel better. I'm sure. When he was popular, she was obviously not close to being born.
There's a team of WNBA rookies in the unrivaled league, right? Isn't that where some of this chatter is?
Yeah, you have to be one of the top 30 or 40 players. I don't know who comes up with that list, and there's not that many players in the WNBA, but you need to be in the upper echelon, if you will. Obviously, Caitlin Clark would fit that mold, but that's a back-end story to other things we have today, obviously.
One thing I want to get to at some point today is, and again, we've seen the preseason polls start to fall out here from college football. Again, we are a week away from the Dublin game. That'll be Florida State and Georgia Tech this year, coming up on Saturday. And then, 2.5 weeks away from Indiana, Purdue, Notre Dame, all starting their seasons. When you look at, and I feel like we're going to need a refresher a couple of times throughout the year on the college football playoff format. It is quite interesting. And as a Notre Dame fan, I obviously have a lot of interest in it. It is very interesting. Notre Dame standing within the college football playoff and how this format is going to break out. Again, 12-team playoff. 4 will get a bye. 5 through 12 will have to win 4 games to win it all. It is wild. Like when you think of, okay, the 4 teams that get a bye, picture the NCAA tournament format. This year, our number 1 seeds were who? UConn, Purdue, Houston.
Goodness, why can't we think of the 4th one? That's going to kill me. Wasn't anyone in the ACC. I'm going to have to look that up. That's going to bother me. That's going to bother me so much.
Why did I think it was Carolina?
Was it North Carolina?
I don't know.
I'll look it up.
Like, if you go with the 4 number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament, for the most part, all 4 of them are on a pretty even tier. Yeah, this year, Purdue.
It was North Carolina.
It was North Carolina.
This year,
Good
like,
for you.
Purdue
UConn,
and UConn.
Houston, North Carolina, Purdue.
Yeah, like Purdue and UConn, okay, if you want to nitpick, they probably were on a class by themselves. But for the most part, there's not a huge drop-off in the 1 overall seed and the 4th number 1 seed. So if you gave those 4 teams buys, no one would really fret about it. The college football playoff, if you look at it right now and you go off of the coaches poll, you're going to have the number 1 overall seed as Georgia.
Yeah, let's just say it's Georgia.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Georgia will get a bye. Ohio State would get a bye.
Right.
Okay, that seems to check out.
Maybe Florida State.
The 2 other buys would go to Florida State and Utah.
Oh, yeah.
So you have the 10th team in the preseason poll getting a bye, and the 13th team in the preseason poll getting the bye.
Yeah, they're not going to go by 1, 2, 3, 4 in the final rankings. No.
It is the
which is so college
conference
football.
Champions of the 4. It's now a Power 4.
Well, so many people talked about that. They whined about it. Well, conference championships don't mean anything. Okay, now they mean a lot. They mean a ton.
It means a ton because now if you play out this format, Oregon, if they finish 2nd in the nation, they won't get a bye, but yet they're going to have the easy draw, per se. So I know a lot of this can be confusing. I just want to bring it up to people of, like, the 2nd team in the Big Ten versus, like, the 3rd team in the Big Ten. Your path to trying to win it all through the playoff will look wildly different, and it'll be easier once we kind of go through it. But it's just kind of crazy to think, the NCAA tournament, 99% of the time, the top 4 seeds or the top number 1 seeds are the first 4 teams in the rankings. That's not how this college football playoff is going to be.
That'd be too easy for college football. You know college football is going to do some crazy bleep. I think
it's worth explaining a little
Notre
bit more.
Notre Dame's going to be fine. We'll get into it. They're going to be fine. They're not going to host a game. You're not going to host one.
Well, they could host one.
Or you're not going to get a bye. You're not going to get a bye, but you're going to be in it.
But it's very important, again, and again, I'm the psycho Notre Dame fan of, like, wait a minute. You want to make sure you're really high on the non-bye team so you can have a path of Memphis and Utah and not right now. The path for Notre Dame would be at Ole Miss and then Georgia.
That
ain't good.
That's
before
SEC
the semifinal.
Football. That's SEC football, boy. We'll see how you Notre Dame Fighting Irish handle the SEC.
I can hear everybody right now saying, just join the conference. I totally understand that thought. And trust me, there's part of this where I look at what Jack Swarbrick executed and thought, was it the best thing for Notre Dame?
Okay.
Or was it not?
I like you questioning him. So we'll get into that in the 8 o'clock hour. Reminder, Stephen Holder at 8 o'clock. Lynn Dunn in the 9 o'clock hour. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, your morning check down. What did Gus Bradley say about his defense from over the weekend? Preseason game number 1. We'll dive into that. Plus, all your scores from last night. Morning check down. It's coming up next. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this Hump Day Wednesday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Is Jelani Woods on the roster bubble? It's a question to throw Stephen Holder's way coming up here in about a half hour. I know Andy's got a thought on Anthony Richardson as the Colts get back to practice here coming up tonight with the joint sessions with the Arizona Cardinals. But let's go ahead with a morning checkdown.
Yeah, as always, if we have Colts sound, we'll lead with that on a morning checkdown. And we do this morning. We had the coordinators yesterday meeting with the media, Jim Bob Cooter, Gus Bradley, your boy Brian Mason as well. So we'll get to some of that sound as we go. Let's lead with Gus Bradley. Nick Cross has been a huge conversation piece there at safety. How do they utilize him in preseason game one? It does feel, KB, and we talked about it yesterday, that he has won that spot. There at safety next to Julian Blackmon. We'll see if that changes in the next 10 to 13 days or so. But Gus Bradley was asked about his safety. Here's what he had to say.
Played free safety and strong safety. And I thought free safety, just like you said, James, he showed up. His angles were better. He had a couple of racer tackles. His leverage was better. His vision of the quarterback, his plant and break back there was better. So, that part was cool to see. Just like Rodney, they've kind of in the last 10 days or so have put together some back-to-back-to-back practices to where it gives us, hey, they're competing, they're taking on this challenge, and they're getting better.
Now, one question I will have this week and looking ahead to Saturday night, again, Colts and Cardinals, 7 o'clock inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Will those safeties he just mentioned, will they play? If you look at last year's Week 2 preseason game, also at Lucas Oil Stadium, the Colts pretty much sat every single starter, but they did play their corners who were competing for jobs. Will the safeties kind of fall into that bucket this Saturday? I know we're kind of grasping at straws here, but if you're looking for any starting action coming up Saturday night, that might be it. So again, 6 o'clock start time tonight from Grand Park, 6 o'clock tomorrow night, weather permitting. It'll be the Cardinals in town.
Can I throw one thing in there? Can you do that without Julian Blackmon playing? Like, I know they played JT so they could get JT a little time, even if it's a couple handoffs, a couple snaps with Anthony Richardson. Can you play Nick Cross, especially Nick Cross, without Julian Blackmon? Does it do any good? Because Blackmon, he gets injured enough to where that makes me nervous.
Sure. I'm not saying play Blackmon. I guess I probably should have clarified that. But, yes, I think they can. I mean, they played Cross for 4 series on Sunday. Julian Blackmon only played 2. So, yes, I think they can. Obviously it's not the ideal circumstance, but I guess that's kind of the bed that you've made for yourself right now. All right, MLB last night. Did Juan Soto hit a bunch of home runs?
He had 3 of them.
The White Sox are back to reality?
He saved the Yankees. I did see a guy called into WFAN in New York City, like an old guy, and said the 10-run loss the other night to the White Sox was the worst loss of his life.
I love that. Gosh, I love Yankee Red Sox fandom.
And while he might be true, it is still, an early August game when you're in first place.
The Reds are ahead of the Cubs in the standings. Yeah, no big deal. Hunter Green should win Cy Young.
3 straight wins for the Reds. Did he vomit again on the mound last night? I thought I saw he puked again.
That was a quick game. It was an hour and 50-minute game last night. Was it really? So if he puked, it was puke and rally pretty quick.
I thought he did. A buddy of mine's a huge Reds fan, sent another meme of him puking. This time he puked into his glove, though. Oh. Like, you can't do that, can you? Oh, that's disgusting.
It kind of helps create a little extra spin.
I was going to say, the umpire has to check that thing. Getting too much trajectory.
Some kid's going to catch that ball
Mark,
that's been on the puke
please
hands.
Play the Reds audio? I mean, they are lurking right
3
now.
3 straight wins,
I feel like the Cubs and the Reds kind of like alternate between
they're lurking.
They're good for a couple of days, and then they go right back down to reality.
They still got a 3-game series with the Braves at some point here.
Cubs did lose 2-1 last night.
Yeah, they stink.
Don't look now, but here come the Red Legs.
There you go.
Indians win last night. They got a day game coming up today, 1:35 first.
Couple NFL notes. J.J. McCarthy, backup quarterback, probably backup quarterback. I thought he was pretty good preseason game 1 there in Minnesota. Torn meniscus, right knee, going to have surgery. So Sam Darnold will get the start there for the season in Minnesota.
Is he out for the year?
Well, he's not out for the year, but, Darnold's going to get the start you'd imagine for the first month and a half.
I was going to say, I didn't see any timetable. For what it's worth, Colts play the Vikings coming up. I think it's week 10 or so.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly where they'll be, but it's a chance for Sam Darnold. Let me give you an update. I saw one this morning Former Purdue running back Tyrone Tracy Jr., we talked a lot about him with the Giants. He was actually carted off the practice field yesterday. I don't know if you followed this story at all. I know Jake and Jimmy, it happened during their show. Apparently, I'm seeing this morning, it's just a grade 2 low ankle sprain. He'll wear a boot. He's week to week, 3 to 6 weeks. So Tyrone Tracy, I know Purdue fans following him. I still think he gets run with the Giants when he comes back, but that's a bummer. He probably will miss at least the first game or so of the season.
Again, a couple other items locally. We'll get things picked back up from an Olympic break for the WNBA. Certainly an Olympic break. 7:30 tip, Fever and Mercury coming up on Friday. Lynn Dunn going to join us at 9. We'll have to do a little trivia with Lynn Dunn.
I'm good with that.
Our 4-pack of tickets to the Fever and Phoenix. Again, that is Friday at 7:30. And also IndyCar, not an Olympic break, but obviously the NBC properties occupied a lot, so it will be a whole lot of oval action actually to end the year, starting with the old Bomberito event coming up at Gateway Saturday night. Another news item of note, David Malukas, who unfortunately has had to battle some injuries this season, he will be with AJ Foyt Racing starting in 2025. So a little item of note, and I know there are some F1 rumors out there with Alex Palou, so I'll be curious to hear
are
his
there?
reaction
Okay, interesting.
to that this weekend.
I've got one more too.
Well, can I add something to
go
that
ahead.
just quick? In the 9 o'clock hour, maybe we can talk about this for a second. I had a dream last night. I was in the Indy 500.
Oh!
How does that
In the
sound for
snake pit
IndyCar?
or actually driving?
No, that I was a driver in the Indy 500.
How did that go?
Well,
Now, you were
I will
actually there? Because this year
I
you
did not
exited
leave.
early.
I did not leave early. I will tell you, I never got in the race. When I got in the cockpit, I woke up.
Oh,
What kind of a bummer is that?
that does stink.
how
You didn't get
about
to the
that?
gentlemen start your engines?
I didn't get any of it, no.
Just
I
sitting
missed
there
all
on
of it.
pit lane?
I
Were you
missed all
following
of
Ken
it.
Griffey Jr. around for a pace lap or two?
No, as soon as I got in the car, I woke up, it was done. It was all like a lead up to it, everything. Yeah, how about that?
Set
Indy
through the whole
500.
pre-race festivities.
Had
You
the
didn't even get there.
had the fire suit on and everything.
Honestly, the pre-race festivities are a great thing to witness, so it's not the end of the world. It's better than last year.
Last thing I saw right before, right after I returned from the state fair, which was like 10:30 at night,
Mark.
I saw that it says Indiana's Nick Kidwell, the projected starter at right guard, will miss the 2024 season with a knee injury. Started 34 games at James Madison prior to transferring to IU. So they're starting right guard.
That's not
expected
good.
to be out for the season.
That's some
Boy,
IU football talk from Mark Dykton.
I'll be totally honest. I had no idea IU or Mark Dykman was going to bring it. That is the first ever
I didn't
IU
either.
football training camp injury update we've ever given on the morning check.
We should do a sounder for it
Did
like
Kurt
we did the
Signetti
Olympics.
pay you for that, Mark?
I need to check to see if their over/under changed to like 1.5.
Well, it had to. It had to.
No, they have the easier schedule.
No, they do have an easier schedule. They could push for a bowl game, Mark Dykton.
Maybe.
Their over-under is high. I think it's close to bowl eligibility.
It's got to be 4.5, 5.5, something like that. So, all right, good stuff. There's your morning check down reminder. Stephen Holder coming up at 8 o'clock. Anthony Richardson did an interview with Kay Adams. He said something, and it dates back to last year, him sitting. And I kind of disagree with it. So we'll dive into that next. Plus, cut downs 13 days away. More Colts conversation next year as we're hanging out until 10 o'clock. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Final two practices from Grand Park will begin at 6 o'clock each of the next two nights for the Colts. J&V will be out there starting, of course, at 3 o'clock each of the next 2 days. And we decided that it looked like tickets were still available for tonight. I can add them to my shopping cart.
Yeah,
I added them too.
I'm the same way. I just pitched mine back into the pile, but I was able to grab a couple tickets if I wanted. That's surprising. I know when they were free, I mean, they were sold out a month or two in advance. So
again, $5 for each practice the next two nights. Those proceeds go to the flag football Indianapolis League, YMCA League that the Colts are starting up. So we'll see, I guess, what the crowd looks like. I don't know. I figured Marvin Harrison Jr. would honestly be pretty appealing to some fans out there. I get Arizona's not maybe a household name team by any means, but we'll see what the crowds look like tonight.
Kids are back in school, so maybe,
maybe that's it.
The financial, even though it's $5, you're kind of like, well, instead of just being able to freely leave whenever, if it was free, now you feel financially committed a little more. Like, these kids got homework. I got to go to bed.
Lord knows these kids aren't going to sleep before 8 o'clock. Certainly mine.
Well, Mark wasn't home to 10:30, 11 o'clock last night from the fair.
Count Chocula for dinner.
Count Chocula.
Rosie was still
that.
singing Taylor Swift in her bed at about 10:03 last night.
You know, you're a couple years from having to purchase those $300-400 tickets to Taylor Swift.
And by the way, I don't think
my
they're
kids are already
400 by
I think they're probably a little bit more.
My kids are already asking in November, are we going to go? I'm like, no. Maybe we could stand outside the stadium and hope they have the roof open and it's fixed by then.
Well, it's probably not going to be fixed by then. It's just a mechanism.
She's playing 22 right now.
It's just a mechanism. But don't worry, they have it all figured out now with the roof. I view, is this wrong of me? Two things on the practices tonight, and then we'll get to some AR conversation. I view this Arizona team obviously better than the Chicago team that came in here last year. And, of course, I have all of the data of Chicago not being a good team last year. And so I guess I see Arizona maybe as a little bit better. And then I know Irsay teased this on Twitter yesterday, maybe the day before. We're going to see Marvin Harrison Sr. at some point. Do we know when? Could that be tonight? You think it's tomorrow? You think it's both nights? Any idea? Have you heard anything?
Yeah, me predicting Marvin Harrison Sr. appearances is probably not the game I want to play. It's a little bit Bob Sanders. Like, I would assume for him to be there, like, you'd want to, he'd want to hang out the edge. We've seen Edge, show up to training camp practices. I think rather annually here as of late.
Okay.
But, that'll be obviously something to keep an eye on. And, again, when you hear coaches talk about how important these joint practices are, they matter, okay? If they matter, I think you'd like to see the Colts
win.
Dominate.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly,
I'm with you.
I mean, I get that you've got Arizona in a little higher regard than I, but, whether it's Denver or Arizona, these two teams, they're going to be drafted in the top 10.
Arizona's not a playoff team. Exactly.
I think you want to see the Colts handle their business, take care of things here the next couple of nights. So, obviously, that'll be something to watch. And, again, they've already said no Kyler Murray in the preseason, and the assumption is the Colts will obviously sit a ton of starters coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, so again, those practices tonight, JMV going to be out there at 3 p.m. All right, so I wanted just to listen. I know you may say, Andy, this is a stretch, and, they've been asked about it, and they've talked about it. So Kay Adams did, I would imagine this is, a couple days ago.
Yesterday.
Or was it just yesterday? Did a string of interviews with Shane Steichen. She has a show on FanDuel TV. She used to be on TVG. She also obviously used to be on the NFL Network, is well-respected and everything else. So, her stuff is good. They're about 10 to 12, 13-minute interviews. DeForest Buckner, we can play his sound later on. Shane Steichen, Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor. So, a bunch of the luminaries there with the Colts all met with her. And so, one of the things that was asked of Anthony Richardson, and I even included the question just so you had everything, was, and I get it, there is this thought that AR, because he missed so much of the season, damn near the entire season, that he got these mental reps. And I know Steichen talked about it last year, off season, this, training camp and everything else, that, it's one of those things where he got the mental reps. He got to watch Gardner Minshew get ready week in, week out. and all of that is fine. I have a question for you, KB. So let's play this, Mark. Here's Richardson being asked by Kay Adams about last year, and here's what he had to say.
I've talked to some of the best players in the game, like Saquon Barkley, and him missing an entire year. Him saying, it's good. It was meant to happen, and I'm actually better for it. Do you find that at all?
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. It finally gave me time to, just sit back and relax, because I've always been on go, for a while, especially last year. Last year was a long year. So that injury kind of gave me time to just sit back and understand what was going on around me, and just gave me time to learn mentally.
Maybe I'm the bad guy. Maybe we're in the middle of training camp and I'm so hungry for regular season games to start. But KB, I gotta be honest, I don't agree with the question and I don't agree with the answer. It's not a good thing when you miss an entire year. It wasn't a good thing for Saquon Barkley and the Giants when he missed extended time in multiple seasons. It wasn't a good thing for Anthony Richardson to miss last year. It's not a good thing for this year. If he has, struggles early on, we talk about the early part of the schedule, and it's like, well, yeah, he played 2 full games and only in 4 games last year. If we go back to that, it's not a good thing for this season. It wasn't a good thing for last season when, of course, you missed out on the playoffs and could have the AFC South was up for grabs. What it was is it was salvageable. Him getting mental reps and not having to play quarterback, but still being, mentally involved in quarterbacking was salvageable. It wasn't a good thing. I don't think he's better this season because he sat out and had those mental reps. And I don't listen. I know he said it, and I'm not holding Anthony Richardson's feet to the fire, but he got to sit back and relax because it had been a busy year. I mean, I don't know. He didn't even play a full year at Florida on a very average, below average Florida team. So I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking. That's fine. But I heard that yesterday, and I'm like, it's not a good thing when the prize franchise quarterback plays in 4 games and really only, plays into 2 games and misses 15 games. It's not a good thing in any sort of way.
Yeah, I guess good radio would be for me to disagree with that, but yeah, I couldn't agree more, I guess, with pretty much everything you just said right
See,
there.
I didn't know. I thought you might kick back.
No,
I mean, it's just guys, it's not a good thing. It's
fair to
salvageable.
Anthony Richardson, Kay Adams kind of led him down that road with here's what Saquon Barkley said. It's like, Saquon Barkley did what at Penn State? What did Anthony Richardson do at Florida? And again, they played 2 totally different positions. I'm watching Bo Nix on Sunday. Anthony Richardson has played 17 football games since his prom.
Nix has played what?
Bo
50?
Nix played 61 games in college.
Oh, man.
It's just
SEC and at Oregon, obviously they're playing for the championship. You
cannot script game settings. None of it.
No, you can't.
None of it. He throws a pit. He's down late. His season opener against Jacksonville. Boom, he's got to lead a drive. He throws a pick. All right, now you got to come back from that pick. The Rams, they're kicking your ass. Now you got to come back from that. What does he do? He executes a great comeback. The game goes into overtime. Again, just invaluable stuff that you just cannot simulate at Grand Park. So, yeah, I mean, you guys have heard me say it 1,000 times. I've brought up the name Jake Martin played more snaps than him. Let's try to make the whole clock, okay? If there's 24 hours in a day, all right? You know how long into the day Anthony Richardson got last year?
Well, I mean, 4 o'clock. He got 4 hours in, something like that. 5 hours in.
He got to about 3:30 in the morning. You know what you see from midnight to 3:30 in the morning?
Oh boy, it ain't good.
I think Mark's hoping to see Kay Adams based off what he played earlier.
Well, I think she's left, unfortunately.
Mark's going to be at the fair, trying to get home from the fair at midnight to 3:30 in the morning.
Foot-long corn dogs. Can I get in here, please?
And again, I guess when we say Richardson played 173 snaps, that might be kind of hard for whatever, people that don't dissect the NFL to really know what that means. I think it was Will Fries and Quentin Nelson, I believe, Andy, that played the most snaps of any offensive player for the Colts last year. They both were north of 1,100. So 173 out of 1,150 snaps. That's what we're looking at. So again, if you want to play out the clock, if Nelson and Fries had a complete day, Anthony Richardson makes it to 3:30. I don't know if that's probably a stupid analogy, but just to provide a little bit more on the perspective front there.
Can I give you one more thing on this? And again, I'm trying not to be too harsh here. It was salvageable for him to be around Gardner Minshew and Shane Steichen and Jim Bob Cooter and to get those mental reps. But like you have said, the mental reps and preparing for a week and then going out, preparing is one thing, executing is another. I mean, they tell us that in radio all the time. You guys can prepare, but you got to execute it when the on-air light comes on. I think the other side of this is the only, and they know this. The Colts have to know this, and I would imagine AR does as well. This is the only time, KB, that they can kind of use this rhetoric. If Richardson gets hurt this year, and I hope to God he does not, okay, I'm hoping he's playing at least and starting and finishing at least 15, 16 games this season, I'd even probably settle at 15, that this is the only time they can use it. If he gets injured this year, the injury-prone nature and that conversation is going to be the loudest thing that we talk about around here. So I get it. They're saying, hey, we still got something from it, but in no way do I think it made, he's on par. If he would have played last year, that he's on par with that sort of maturation by sitting last year. It didn't help him last year, and I don't think it's going to help him this year. And we talk about that early schedule. I think, could it rear its ugly head? It could. And if it does so, it could in the first month of the season.
Yeah, it's just spin cycle.
It is, and I get it.
12 months later. You weren't saying any of that in mid-August last year when he was named the starter. Obviously you named him the starter for a reason. You wanted him to get the reps, get the feet wet. I did see one thing, we're used to this, I think, a lot around NFL season. Brian Baldinger from NFL Network, who's gone viral with all of these dissecting of film
I love
clips that he does.
Yeah, I love it.
He did Latu from the preseason opener, and I mentioned to you yesterday, I went back and watched those plays. And again, I know it doesn't show up in the stat sheet. I felt like he impacted things, though, on several snaps, run game and pass game. Baldinger was foaming at the mouth.
Was he?
Just at what he was able to do. Again, we're talking Garrett Bowles, a legit left tackle, and Adam Troutman, at one point a tight end, is blocking him. Troutman started in the league 40 games. This is not, Wofford's undrafted free agent that, Latu's throwing around like a rag doll there. So just I think another thing to be encouraged about from what you saw with Latu on Sunday.
All right, we'll keep the Colts conversation going. Reminder, Lynn Dunn joins us at 9 o'clock. But on the other end, ESPN Stephen Holder is a guy like Jelani Woods on the bubble. Who is the most bubblicious player right now as it pertains to roster cuts? We'll dive into that preseason game number 1 and what he wants to see Stephen Holder coming up this week there in Westfield. We'll do it all. Hour number 2. It's coming up next. Wake Up Call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We'll give away 4 tickets to Fever and Mercury coming up Friday night as Caitlin Clark and company return from the Olympic break. We'll do that with Lynn Dunn here in a little over an hour. A man that has certainly had some Fever duties on the resume, but has been busy with the Colts and caught up with Anthony Richardson after the preseason opener on Sunday, joins us now. He would be ESPN's Stephen Holder. Stephen, we debated this a little bit in the opening hour. We are 13 days away from roster cuts. Again, it's just one giant cut, 90 to 53. How would you describe how comfortable Jelani Woods' seat is on the 53-man roster right now?
You know, I got to be honest. I didn't give the idea of him not being on the team any thought until a colleague of ours brought it up in a conversation the other day. And I kind of paused and said, oh, that's crazy when I first, sort of contemplated it. But I think if you just take the situation and took the names off the backs of the jerseys and you looked at it from that perspective, now that's not realistic, but I'm just saying, if you took the names off the backs of the jerseys and based it on training camp and whatever you got out of Sunday's game, you wouldn't say his spot was really secure. And now the reason I say take the names off the backs of the jerseys is because he is still a third-round pick. And I think that's going to matter a lot. He missed all of last year. I don't think they see his story as being complete, And so I think he'll get a lot of benefit of the doubt because of the circumstances, some of which are just sort of unfortunate and some have to do with his draft status. But I think those circumstances matter a lot. They just do when you're talking about roster construction. But I'm just saying that has nothing to do with how he's performed. And he has been underwhelming. That is just absolutely unequivocally true. And in a unit where there's really not a lot of separation, I mean, you gotta find a way to distinguish yourself.
Yeah, I think all of that is really fair. I would have him on my 53-man roster right now, but I can certainly listen to the debate, and I thought you described it pretty well. I'll add this. When you bring up the name on the back of the jersey, with roster cuts, I do think it matters, though, because there is an element of, are you...
Oh, it absolutely matters, just to be clear, yes.
Right. Who can you sneak onto your practice squad, and who can you not? And I would think a Jelani Woods is a former third-round pick who has at least made a play or two, if not more, in the NFL, would draw some intrigue on the waiver wire, potentially more than a Will Mallory if you're going to make the debate of, are you keeping 4 tight ends or are you keeping 5 tight ends? And Mallory, who I think has also had a flash or two, has also been riddled with injuries, arguably more so than Jelani.
Yeah. And I agree with everything you just said there. I think the other thing, to be fair to Jelani, I think the other thing that has to come into play here when you're looking at the long term is upside. He has upside, okay? That is true. He completely and clearly has upside. He has the size. He is still new to the position, relatively new, right? He moved to tight end in college. So, he's had basically one NFL season. So, I mean, look, the story on Jelani Woods has not been written. We're only in, hopefully, if the Colts are right about him, hopefully we're still in the early chapters. But all I'm saying, and I think we all agree on this, like he's got to give him a little more. And right now, they don't have a lot to go on right now other than the projection.
We're talking Colts. Stephen Holder joining us, ESPN.com. Stephen, when you look at the performance through training camp thus far, the preseason game number 1, is the depth better at corner or safety going forward after the performance by specifically poor Dallas Flowers over the weekend?
I would say right now, I think corner, the depth at corner is still better. I don't know if it's great depth, but they have more players that I think are competent players. I think at safety right now, they're trying to find out if they have that. They certainly have a high-end safety in Julian Blackmon, but I I think the depth still is better at corner. I don't love the corners, but I think I think over time they have more upside at that position by far than safety right now.
Again, Stephen Holder with us from ESPN. He caught up with Anthony Richardson after the game on Sunday. You think in any way, shape, or form, Shane Steichen and what he saw from the offense on Sunday will alter his approach for this Saturday night with the Cardinals?
I think possibly, but I think it's, well, let's put it this way. Maybe it should, but I don't think it will. I don't think they were all that efficient. They certainly didn't move the ball that much. There were lots of things that I could take away from that offensive performance and maybe nitpick. But I think ultimately, sorry for the car making all this noise here.
No, all
but
good. If I had to guess, it's a morning workout on the horizon for Stephen Holder here.
Well, or a school drop off.
Oh, well. Yes.
Okay, one or the other, yeah.
There you go. Which might be a workout, you know?
Oh, man, to get out of the house, yeah. So anyway, here's what I'd say. I think I said this on the other shows. I'll say it here again. I think I look at the Denver Broncos on Sunday afternoon. I look at their offensive performance. It means nothing in the grand scheme, right? But they actually were pretty efficient, and they moved the ball. The Colts starting offense really didn't do that. Again, they played like 7 or 8 plays, so what am I even judging? But that being said, all I'm saying is you do have a quarterback that hasn't played a lot in college or in the NFL, and I think if you want to nitpick, the nitpick would be, all right, he needs to play. But I also think that Shane Steichen will ultimately on the side of the
Hey, now.
Nope. Sounds like he's gone there.
The force fields of the drop-off line.
Is that what happened, you think? I thought he's going to get leg day in. No, he's not. He's dropping off at school. Ugh.
He doesn't miss many workouts.
Ugh.
You and I have missed a few, I would say.
Yeah, probably.
Over our days
Every day
there.
for the last month, yeah.
6 o'clock tonight, Colts at Grand Park again. A little longer practice tonight, 6 to 8, 6 to 7:20 tomorrow night.
I do the thing where I walk the dogs, and I act like that's a workout.
Oh, I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's not a workout. I mean, it's kind of a workout, but it's not a real thing.
I sweat watching training camp practice, and that's my workout.
Hey, listen, a couple of those days last week, you were spot on.
Stephen Holder is back with us from ESPN. Stephen, feel free to finish your thought. If not, I got another question that I can throw your way.
Yeah, I think all I was saying is that I think if you want to see the starters play more, I think the argument, particularly on offense, is Anthony Richardson. He hasn't played a lot in college or in the NFL. They weren't particularly sharp with the first offense on Sunday. I'm not losing any sleep over it, but I think if you want to make that argument, I'm not going to talk you out of it, and so that would be the argument for playing a little more. But I also recognize that Shane Steichen will likely not do that. So I think they're going to stick with their plan and really not play those guys very much, if at all, on Saturday against Arizona.
Stephen Holder from ESPN with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. I want to shift gears to A.D. Mitchell, who we have seen now be the new Josh Downs, if you will. The last couple of times we've observed the Colts, whether it was in that Friday practice last week or Sunday in the preseason opener. I'll go back to something Jim Bob Cooter said in the spring. Stephen, Jim Bob Cooter, the offense coordinator for the Colts, kind of went out of his way to praise Steve Sarkisian and the Texas staff and, how A.D. Mitchell kind of walked out of maybe more of an NFL offense in college than most wideouts. And when you hear that comment, I did find it interesting, but then I also thought to myself, okay, how much of that is real? Well, I think in them giving him the chance here to play slot, it is pretty real, and it is a credit to Sarkisian in Texas and, of course, to A.D. Mitchell. I've seen a lot of rookies in 12, 13 Colt training camps, Stephen, where the coaching staff has said, we want him to play one position and not overload him and not put too much on the plate. With A.D. Mitchell, they're putting a lot on his plate, and I think at some level, it's a credit to the kid and a credit to the collegiate system he came from that they feel like he can handle it.
No, 100% right. I've talked to Jim Bob and I've talked to Shane Steichen about this very topic, about about Steve Sarkisian. I've talked to Steve Sarkisian about this as well, and all parties have said that the pro concepts that they run at Texas, they carry over. So they'll call it something different, and maybe the terminology might be different on the pro level. But he has learned some of the concepts that they'll be running. He's already learned them in college, particularly in a day and age where so much of the college game is really just, I'm not saying that college players don't understand football at a high level. They certainly do, but there's so much of it is just controlled by the coaches, and they're micromanaged each and every play. Everything's called from the sideline. They're really not used to the NFL way of doing things, NFL concepts. A lot of times you are teaching that to rookies. I'm not saying it's a huge leap for them because, again, football is football. But I do think there is something to be said for what they do at Texas. And what I was told by the Colts coaches, who by the way, have a very good working relationship with the Texas staff, which is no small issue here. What I was told is that that Steve Sarkisian, I should say, is very highly regarded by NFL people for his scheme. And they're one of the teams that NFL teams actually look at from the college game when they're looking to, maybe study concepts. Texas is one of those teams that they'll at least look at and say, let's see what Texas is up to. So, yes, I think that goes a long way. He was only there for a year. Now, I will give you that as the counterpoint, but I do think it demonstrates that A.D. Mitchell is further along than maybe some young wide receivers who have not been exposed to a lot of those concepts. And I agree. Most of the time with rookie wide receivers, they will attempt to kind of limit and streamline what they ask them to do and not ask them to play a second position for sure.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more item. Again, he was only at Texas for a year, but was at Georgia before that, and his offense coordinator at Georgia was Todd Monken, who is now the offense coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens.
Pretty good.
So,
pretty good pedigree.
Again, there is some, pretty good, NFL pedigree, as Andy said, with that.
Yeah.
Stephen,
go ahead. Think about it. I mean, you see so many college coordinators are lifetime college coaches. You know what I mean? And so anybody that has NFL experience and NFL background or NFL tendencies, they tend to implement that into their college scheme. And I don't think that's true for most college or Power 5 coordinators for the most part. I mean, so this is definitely a unique situation, and I think the Colts benefit.
Stephen Holder from ESPN, ESPN.com with us here. Payless Liquors hotline on the Fan on this Wednesday. I don't know if you have a couple bullet points. What do you want to see from the Colts today and Thursday against Arizona? These scrimmages, they mean so much. What does Stephen Holder want to see out there?
Well, I really think the thing that I get out of these joint practices that I think is most realistic is you get that one-on-one coverage, or not one-on-one, but the matchups with the passing game, on both sides, right? The Colts defense against Arizona and vice versa. Arizona's defensive backs against the Colts wide receivers and tight ends. I think that gives you a very realistic picture because those guys, you don't tackle and those kinds of things in practice, but the coverage aspect of it, the passing coverage aspect of it is very realistic. I mean, you're able to do things like jam at the line of scrimmage. You're able to be physical in coverage. All the things that you would basically do on Sunday, with the exception of actually tackling, you can do all of that, right? So
Now that sounded like you just fell into a pothole.
That was scary.
Mark,
that's good.
That was going to be our final answer. Just give him a call back and tell him.
That's a scary one. The other one, you could see it coming, but that one worries me. We need to make sure Holder's okay, actually.
That one is like, wait a minute, you didn't play my son in T-ball? We're going to have a word with you, and, I'll see you at the drop-off line. Granted, Steven's kids are much, much older than that, but...
Oh, goodness.
Thank you to Stephen Holder. That was going to be our final question with him anyways. I did want to note, and I know you brought this up yesterday, but Micah Abraham, the rookie out of Marshall, who, had a great game on Sunday, had the big strip and fumble return. I hate him.
Well, oh, you hate him. Okay.
I hate him.
Okay, I know because of because of this damn Notre Dame Marshall game. Is that where you're going week 1? What was it? 2 years ago or last year? It's 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Steven is alive and well, by the way.
Okay,
I just
good.
checked
Good
it.
enough.
Well-being
Thank
check
you.
completed.
We had to do that, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for that. Every time Maddie Bowen brings up the Max Bowen birth, she often, says to Max, your first football game ever was Notre Dame Marshall. I'm like, can we move on? He's about to be 2. All right.
Yeah. Let's get some new material
moments there.
Right. Well,
Micah Abraham, a huge interception in that game.
But that's her birth. I mean, she's going to remember everything around birth, even more so than obviously you.
I believe Stephon Gilmore's brother played for Marshall, also had a big interception in that game. But Abraham, what I'm getting at with him is like what he did on Sunday, Andy. He's 5'9". So when he was drafted, he was the one that's like, wait a minute, this isn't a Chris Ballard draft pick.
Yeah, he's not 6'1".
The 6'1", 30-some-inch corner, from a wingspan standpoint, running 4.31. But this is a dude that was around the ball a ton at Marshall. Set a school record for passes defense, interceptions. So I don't think you're near this thought this year or even in the next year or two. But life after Kenny Moore, or just insurance for Kenny Moore, is probably the better way to put it. That makes sense. NFL bloodlines are there. Donnie Abraham, if that rings a bell, he is the father to Micah Abraham and his cousin Tim Jennings, obviously a former Colt player there, former Bear, if I'm not mistaken. Mark
was Tim?
I believe that's correct.
Was Tim Jennings also the name of the guy who won Jeopardy or took over?
Ken Jennings. No relation.
He'd write his name differently every day,
was
right?
it Tim or was it Ken Jennings? I'm not I don't watch Jeopardy every night. I'm not old enough yet. I need to at least add another 10 years onto my life. Just quickly, for me this weekend, I'll just keep it simple with 3 things for today and tomorrow. I want to see the offensive line win a little bit. 2 yards per carry. All 3 running backs, 2 yards per carry over the weekend against Denver. So, if we're talking about Anthony Richardson running, we're talking about, 13, 14, 1,500 yards, whatever it may be for Jonathan Taylor. Offensive line needs to win. And by the way, I like the offensive line. I think they will. I want your reports and tweets and stories and everyone else who's out there today to feel like Anthony Richardson was sharp. I'm not going to put a number on it. Completion percentage doesn't always matter. I still know the quarterback's not going to be lit up. Like, I get all those things, but I want to see a sharp Anthony Richardson. And then finally, I'm trying to remember last year if this was the rhetoric we heard from the Colts at any point, but you start to hear these things in these joint practices. I don't want the secondary burned. I don't want the secondary to be smoked.
You think Kyler will challenge him vertically, right?
It was Philly. It was Philly last year where towards, the end of practice, you started to get, A.J. Brown and, those Philly wide receivers that are very good. They did damage last year. To me, the secondary are they good enough for 17 weeks in the NFL? I mean, that is one of my main, besides Anthony Richardson and other injuries, that's my main storyline. Is this secondary good enough for a full season in the NFL? We may not find out everything, obviously, this week, but, you don't want to hear Marvin Harrison Sr. and the other wide receivers there is Zach Pascal on the team, whoever the hell else they have, that those guys are continually open, continually making plays down the field. Those would be my 3 things that I would look out for tonight and tomorrow.
Marvin Harrison Sr. better not be getting
or Junior, excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen,
I
he
think
could
Marvin
go out there and
Harrison's-
run a dig route.
I think him and Bob Sanders can both still do some cooking on each side of the ball there. Jamar Chase, by the way, speaking of joint practice next week, did not show up to Bengals practice yesterday. So his holdout now seemingly has reached another level. So that'll be a storyline to watch next week with Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Can I ask you a question on that? Why is that not a bigger story? Everything is CeeDee Lamb.
Because it's Cincinnati and not Dallas.
Oh, boy. I mean, I get it, but... And listen, I get it media-wise, but Cincinnati is better than Dallas.
Yeah,
at least that's how
correct
I
me if
view
I'm
them.
wrong. Chase has another year, right?
He's 2 years.
CD's contract.
I believe Chase is 2 years on
right,
the rookie
and
deal.
CD's just one.
Right,
so
and
I think
CD's just
maybe
one.
that's a
I mean,
little
that's
bit.
a big,
Honestly, I say in all seriousness, it's because
it's because
Cowboys.
it's Dallas. What do you
And not
make?
the Bengals.
What do you make of? We knew this last week, and obviously it's reared its ugly head yesterday, and maybe it's Pittsburgh putting some pressure. I mean, that the Steelers and Niners basically have a deal worked out, and Ayuk wants to go play for Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. What do you make of that? Right now, San Francisco's trying anything. Mark, you mentioned during the break, the Niners have had to cancel some joint practices. They have like 25 big injuries on their team. And if they lose a guy like Brandon Ayuk, it's impossible to sell me that San Francisco is going to be as good this year with injuries and without Brandon Ayuk. But again, I thought that would happen last week. It's reared its ugly head yesterday that it could happen here.
Yeah, I find it interesting that, the people super plugged into this have said this has taken twists and turns unlike really any story they've seen in quite some time in the NFL. I think Schefter has mentioned that of 1 minute looks like, oh, he's definitely coming back to San Francisco. The next minute, boom, framework deal in place, multiple spots. So you would think if some of these teams are going to trade for him, they'd want to get it done, pretty soon. And, when you hear NFC North teams like the Browns and Steelers in the mix, again, to me, that's the best division in football. I mean, that is the best division 1-4 in football with what you have with Cleveland and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and Baltimore. And, the Colts saw that division last year. Fortunately, they won't see it this year. They'll see Pittsburgh in week 4, right? That's the final game there.
It is,
first
yes.
quarter
It is.
of the season. Did you see we've got a Pacers in-season tournament schedule?
I did see this. Go ahead and give it. Yeah,
so the
I saw it
Pacers are
yesterday.
the 2 seed in their group for the in-season tournament. You've got the Miami Heat, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Detroit Pistons, and the Toronto Raptors. Those will be your in-season tournament games. I think something I like with what the NBA announced yesterday, and I assume we're approaching full schedule announcement here pretty soon for the NBA season. I do like that 3 of these 4 games fall on a Friday in consecutive weeks. So November 15th, Heat at home. November 22nd, this will be a nationally televised game. Pacers are on national television.
Hey, there you go.
It's already
Pacers,
been announced.
Pacers Bucks, baby. That's a good
Bucks
game.
will be ESPN. Then you'll get your typical Friday home Thanksgiving game. I think we're used to that. The tree lighting night. That's an 8 o'clock tip against the lowly Pistons. And then the Raptors would be the final in-season tournament game. I remember that Atlanta game last year in Atlanta for the Pacers, having some intrigue behind it as they were playing for kind of official seeding within their group. But I like that the NBA has slotted these out to Friday nights in November. I think that is a little bit easier for fans to realize, okay, these games mean a little bit more early in the season. I love the national game with Juice. And, right out of the gate, in terms of a Friday Miami and a Friday Milwaukee game, those are 2 pretty marquee games, I think, early in the season.
Well, we need to find out where they're at after the Miami game on Friday, November 15th. Do they get a day where they get to go out in South Beach? Do they get, maybe
that's
a thirsty,
home, right?
Maybe, that is home.
Yeah.
Oh, that's home. They have to go to Milwaukee. Well, that's not nearly as fun.
That's not the Miami flu.
No, it's not. You think that'll be the first game they play against Milwaukee? I mean, obviously it's early.
Gosh,
it's November 22nd.
Last year it was super front-loaded
with
them, right?
It was front-loaded with them. Yeah, they didn't play them the end. And then you mentioned on November 29th, the day after Thanksgiving, or, that Friday, whatever it is, the Pistons game. You said the lowly Pistons. Well, after last year, the Pacers lost to some lowly teams.
Did they lose to Detroit, though?
But I don't think they
that
lost
would have been
to
a different
Detroit.
level of low.
Yeah, Detroit was that bad. So I don't know if they'll be any better.
Are you good on the Pacers over-under with wins? Did you see this?
I did not see it. Now, last year, you bet it up to what, 45.5?
Yeah.
Was it?
Was able to secure that. So far, I think we're 2 for 2 on Pacers over bets each of the last 2 years. This year, I don't know.
Okay. I'm going to guess, 46, 47.5?
I think you would hope the over there. 40. Gosh, you were spot on with this. 47.5.
Yeah. So they think they're, okay. I mean, if they're going to have the type of season we hope after making the Eastern Conference Finals, you would hope they creep up to 50 wins, right? I mean, isn't that what we're hoping? That they're 50, 51, 52?
Last year
I'm trying to remember. What did they win last
48,
year?
47?
Yeah, hang on. Let me look that up because I can't remember.
Now, if you look at some of these other teams, it's not like a ton of them have higher win totals than the Pacers. Certainly the Celtics. They've got the Knicks just north of 50. They've got Philly and Milwaukee north of 50. But Indiana would kind of be on that next tier of teams.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Hang on. They ended up last year regular season 47-35.
Yeah, it's one of those things where their record almost could be worse, just because I do think the East is pretty legit, 1-8. But do you feel maybe better about their team?
Yeah. Well, I think it's all about what other teams do. I mean,
plus they battled a ton of injuries last year.
Yeah, I mean, if they're 47 wins and they're healthy and they're a 5 or 6 seed, I don't think everyone will be sunshine and rainbows with that. It's too easy to say, but you clean up 3 or 4 horrific losses last year, and you're a 50-win basketball team. Tyrese Halliburton doesn't miss a month of the season, and Matherin at the end of the season, and making an in-season trade where you change up the starting lineup may cost you a game or two. It's a long season. I mean, the the NBA is so difficult to predict, but I think 47.5 is pretty good, and I think I'm taking the over. Now, the question here, before we get to a morning checkdown, is: are you going to tease the over/under up at all? Because that's how you made money last year. Is you teased it up 2-3 games, and suddenly you're way in the plus money. You made some money yesterday or last year.
I need to think about that.
Okay,
I've probably got to get through my Colts over/under.
Let's say, can we start the football season first?
Last year I did have 7 wins for the Colts, which is very much on the high end.
You won last year. I think I had him at 6.
So this year, 8.5, 9.5? Is that where they've hovered around this year for the over/under?
Right there. So
again, 4-pack of tickets, Fever Mercury for Lynn Dunn and company. She's going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock as they get started up with a much more on paper manageable schedule here to close out the season as they try to lock up a rare playoff berth from recent history for that squad. I will give some thoughts college football playoff related. I don't know if it's a great thing for my Irish. We'll explain more coming up in a bit. Before all of that, let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, Colts practice tonight. Tickets still available. Colts.com tonight and tomorrow. Those joint practices against the Arizona Cardinals. So get there early. Sure, great crowd there, Grand Park in Westfield. As for yesterday, out there, Colts facility, no practice, but we did talk with the coordinators. Gus Bradley, defensive coordinator, met with the media for about 7 or 8 minutes yesterday. He was asked about a guy that's been widely talked about since Sunday, and that's backup cornerback Dallas Flowers, of course, coming off that Achilles injury. What did Bradley see with his backup DB? Here's what he had to say.
Kind of what we expected. Although, we said in OTAs, that last 5% or that last 10% is what he needs work on. So we kind of anticipated that there would be some, spots where he was just getting acclimated to the speed of the game again. So, I know for him, he didn't play as good as he wanted to, but we kind of anticipated there might be some different looks that he might have to get accustomed to just coming back off this injury. So, I think that's a good start for him. We know where he's at. He knows where he's at and the progress he has to make.
5 to 10% at corner gets exposed very, very quickly. And I think you saw that on Sunday with Dallas Flowers as he comes back again. He tore that Achilles last October. So 6 o'clock tonight, 6 o'clock tomorrow. Colts, Cardinals, joint practices from Grand Park. Again, Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen. Obviously, we're together in Philly. Jonathan Gannon, former Colt assistant coach under Frank Reich from 2018 to 2020. All right, Major League Baseball last night. No hotter team in baseball than my Reds.
You damn right.
Hunter Green,
Don't
stud.
look now, but here come the Red Legs.
Thank you, Mark. They are above the Cubs. They're nearing the Cardinals. They're going to make the wild card.
Why don't you put money on that, then?
Can you?
You had an audible groan there, Mark.
Oh, man. They're up to third place. Third place in the Central.
Big series with the Braves coming up.
Coming for you, Joel A. Erickson.
They're need
coming.
that. Now, we're not worried about the Brewers. Brewers can do them. We need the Brewers to beat up on everybody else. The Reds are hot. They just need Hunter Green to pitch every third day.
They have won 3 in a row. I did see that. Cubs fell yesterday 2-1 to the Guardians. Cleveland won 4 straight there. Indianapolis Indians 5-4 over St. Paul. They got a grand slam in the 7th. How about that? That was the difference.
One of their final day games of the year, I believe, today.
Oh, is it today?
Home game for the Indians.
Businessman special.
Kevin's Reds fandom swings wildly like his Tiger fandom, where every tournament he's like, "Here we go, get the jacket ready. He's gonna win." And then like a day later, he's like, "They stink.
Yeah,
they're done."
Yeah, but I think KB loves Tiger. I think.
Loves?
You put up with the Reds until we get to football season, which is basically now.
You think that I love Tiger?
Yeah. You got the hat on again.
You're wearing a hat that literally has his logo on it.
I'm insanely obsessed.
Yeah,
would be the better way.
You're not obsessed with the Cincinnati Reds, which is probably a good thing. Couple NFL notes. J.J. McCarthy there in Minnesota, torn meniscus right knee. He's going to be out quite a while. Sam Darnold now cemented as the starter for at least a little while. Former Purdue rookie running back Tyrone Tracy Jr. He got carted off Giants practice, but I guess it's not as bad as they thought.
Is that coffee?
Yeah, it's coffee. It's a little spillage. It's just a little bit. It's okay.
Look. I did that this morning.
Oh, you did it too?
Oh, yeah.
95% of it got on my paper, which is fine. None of it got on the radio equipment, which is really all.
We don't care about your lowly
which is
paper.
really all that matters. But anyway, Tyrone Tracy Jr. grade 2 low ankle sprain, so not nearly as bad as they thought. He's 3 to 6 weeks, and I did not mention this. Hollywood Brown, wide receiver with the Chiefs, going to be out about a month and a half with like a sternum issue.
He
So
went to the hospital, didn't he?
yeah, so he's going to be out maybe up to 6-7 weeks. So
Well,
that's a
I'm
bad
glad
one
to
for
hear
him.
that Tracy injury is a lot better than what it initially looked like. Non-contact, air casted, the whole thing there. Decatur Central product, of course, and by all accounts has had a really nice start to his NFL career with the Giants. We mentioned the Fever, 7:30. They're a slight favorite Friday night against the Mercury there, again, as they start back up. And IndyCar back on the schedule. A lot of ovals to end the year, beginning Gateway, I believe, if people are looking for something to do. I think IMS typically does a bus trip over there, day of bus trip and back, with some snacks and drinks and everything. Gateway coming up Saturday night there. David Malukas signing with AJ Foyt Racing here for the 2025 season.
Fever GM Lynn Dunn going to join us at 9 o'clock. But on the other end, for some reason, Kevin Bowen is worried about his Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the college football playoff. A thought or two on that. We'll do it next. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this Wednesday wake-up call. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Joint practices for the Colts beginning today and tomorrow. They'll also go to Cincinnati on Tuesday for a joint session. So here in the next 6 days, they'll have 3 joint practices and then also a preseason game coming up Saturday night against the Arizona Cardinals. Lynn Dunn, Fever GM, going to join us here coming up at 9. We'll give away 4 tickets to the Fever and Mercury this Friday night. It's a 7:30 tip, an Ion game coming up for the Fever as they start back up after the Olympic break. We teased this throughout the show, Andy, and I did want to, mention it. I know that we get lost a little bit in the big college football discussion in this market because breaking news, Indiana and Purdue are not in the mix for those sorts of bursts. But
breaking news from 93.5 and 107.5.
Thank you, Mark. That's the first time I've ever heard that. That thing sounds a lot more official.
It was scary.
Yeah.
I was scared. I thought something happened to the computer system.
I was expecting like the Will Ferrell breaking news sounder there.
Andy did get coffee on the computers.
Oh, that's great.
Now, obviously, and I'm biased, but I think there's evidence to back it up. Notre Dame has been a playoff team and has been a playoff candidate here in recent years.
Well, it's definitely the expectation, at least,
and
especially this year.
Hope now that the playoff has expanded to 12 teams, they will be that. Now, everything I'm about to say, Andy, can easily be answered by join a conference, Notre Dame, and you won't have many of these issues. So let me get that out of the way. But I do think we need a reminder of what the college football playoff format now looks like and how big of a difference it can be just 1 to 2 slots in where you're ranked. I made the analogy to you in the 7 o'clock hour. If you were going to slot out the NCAA tournament, the number 1 seeds, the 4-1 seeds, there's not a huge discrepancy very often from, again, Purdue this year at the top, to North Carolina or UConn and Houston, the other 1 seeds. For the college football playoff, though, it's a reminder of how much separation there is with these teams. So, for example, the coaches poll came out, okay? Your top 5 in the coaches poll: Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Bama. Now, if you look at the preseason poll and you acted like that was the final poll and we did the college football playoff off of that, Georgia would be your 1 seed, Ohio State would be your 2, we would skip all the way from 2 to 10 to get the next team that makes a bye. That would be Florida State. They would get a bye because they win the ACC. And then you skip all the way down to number 13 and the Utah Utes.
The Utes, baby. Kyle Whittingham.
Big 12.
Yep.
Would get the 4th bye as the 13th ranked team.
They are in the Big 12, by the way. People listening, you did
Big
hear
12
that right.
Utah Utes.
Yes,
thank you.
It's new this season. They're in the Big 12.
So again, you have the highest ranked SEC team in Georgia,
right?
The highest ranked Big 10 team in
right.
Ohio State, the highest ranked ACC team in Florida State, and then of course Utah. Of course, I say Utah as the 13th team, but they would get the 4th bye. Okay, so what does this all mean? That means the 5 through 12 games on the opening weekend. These are on-campus games. Oregon, as the 2nd overall team of the nation, or excuse me, 3rd overall team of the nation, they would become the 5 seed because they don't win the Big 10. So what does Oregon do? They host Memphis, the top group of 5 team. If they win that game, they'll then play Utah on a neutral field. Well, think about that. Home to Memphis, Utah on a neutral field. That seems pretty manageable, does it not?
Yeah.
You go down 2 spots. You would have a team like Ole Miss, for example. They would host Notre Dame in their first round game. That's a marquee matchup.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Juicy. That is
Freeman
great.
versus Kiffin.
That's everything we want in college football.
Absolutely.
The winner of that game, they would feel pretty good about that, wouldn't they?
Right.
Notre Dame
Sure
wins
you
an
would.
SEC road game. Lane Kiffin beats Notre Dame. Whoever wins that game feels pretty good. You get number 1 Georgia.
Yeah, you get Georgia.
The next week. So think about that. The buys are so much of a drop-off from what you have with Georgia at 1, then Ohio State at 2, then all the way down to Florida State at 10 or Utah at 13. So what I'm getting at here is Notre Dame, for example, they don't get a host. They play an SEC team on the road, and their second-round game is Georgia instead of Florida State or Utah. But if Notre Dame was in the Oregon position as the 5th seed, they would host, they'd get Memphis, and then they'd get Utah
right.
on a neutral field. So I basically bring all this up, not to play woe is me about Notre Dame.
I was about to say.
Although I guess I am a little bit. But plug in any team for Notre Dame. What I just plugged in Ole Miss, for example. What I'm getting at is if you are the 5th seed for Oregon versus the 6th seed or the 7th seed, it is a huge difference.
It's a big difference.
Between avoiding what would be Georgia, what would be Ohio State versus playing a Florida State or a Utah in that quarterfinal game. And remember, those games are not on campus. The 5 through 12 matchups will be campus sites. Once you play around in the format of the 12-team college football playoff, you'll immediately go to bowl sites for those quarterfinal games. So, again, I use Notre Dame as an example because they are a bit of a local team, certainly. But you could plug this in for any of these teams. Like right now, you've got Michigan. You've got Penn State. They'd be playing in these opening round games. Penn State would be at Texas. Michigan would be at Alabama. Think about that. Michigan is at Bama.
You're getting me all hot and bothered right now.
If Michigan beats Bama, who do they get? They get Ohio State.
They get Ohio State.
So, like, it's just,
dude,
it is incredible how big of the discrepancy is in what your path looks like for teams that are not one of the first two at-large teams, if you will. And again, we don't say that about the NCAA tournament when we're ranking out the number 1 seeds.
Well, the first thing that needs to be said is, I know for years they said we could never do a playoff, for big-time college football. And one of the reasons was they wanted to protect academics, KB, and travel and the Rose Bowl and everything else. So it's interesting how they were finally able to do the college football playoff. Now,
speaking of protecting academics.
I got a litany of things. Go ahead.
Did you see this?
Go ahead.
Notre Dame has moved their finals schedule for the first semester in preparation to potentially host a home playoff game. So they have, Notre Dame of all places, they have moved their final schedule just in case
I don't like it. I don't like it.
What do you mean you don't like it? It means college football runs everything.
Yeah, it does.
You have to love it. Notre Dame, this, academic rich institution.
We can't recruit everybody.
We're not going to bend the knee. No. What are we doing? We're moving our final schedule. So the valedictorian from, Oaks Christian out in California, I'm sure is really worried about making sure she or he can attend the Notre Dame home playoff game. It just is a reminder of college football runs every major athletic institution.
All right, so I have a list of things here I'm going to go off. Number 1, and I know, number 1, it's got to be said, and there's a segment of the fan base that is rolling their eyes at Kevin Bowen right now that doesn't want to hear your whiny, moaning, and complaining about Notre Dame. Okay?
Plug in Penn State. Plug in Michigan. I just use Notre Dame because I'm biased.
I'll use Notre Dame as an example. They're not going to get to host in any of this. I do find it
No. They could host one game.
Or they're not going to get the bye, excuse me.
Yeah.
I find that interesting because, I wonder, it feels like Notre Dame had to give a little bit. And that, to me, is what has always been interesting with the new college football playoff system is, wow, it feels like Notre Dame gave in a little bit. They said, hey, you're not going to join a conference. You can be independent. That's fine. But you're going to have to give. You're not going to have the total access. You could argue, and I'll get to the flip side of this in a second. You're not going to have the total access that maybe you did have. I found that interesting because I believe Greg Sankey runs college football. I mean, that'd be the Big Ten a little bit, but I believe 80% of it, 8 out of 10 decisions go through Greg Sankey. The other thing here, and it goes to what you're talking about, with the Final Four, this was always a debate. One of the big conferences, KB, was going to get left out. So they tell you, hey, go win your conference, but then for some people, you have to not only win your conference, but you got to be better than these conference winners. So in the new college football playoff system, they said, all right, you want conference championships to mean something. And this, by the way, in my opinion, is the SEC and Big Ten giving something back. You have to do that. You know, when you see negotiations between the NFL or the NBA Players Association and the owners, there's always, at least a little bit, some give and take. So this is the Big Ten and the SEC saying, okay, we're going to make conference championships mean something. But in return, we're going to get the teams. The 6 extra teams that are going to get picked, we're going to have each and every year at least 3 in the SEC. I'm sure will campaign for an 8 or 9-3 win, 9-3 team to be the 4th playoff team because they beat Alabama, back in October. I mean, that will be a conversation. So I think what conference championships matter or how much they matter is a difference between these two. Now, the other thing is, and Notre Dame does not fit this mold as much because they made the playoff, but I think they probably fit it a little bit along with Ole Miss and along with Penn State, and that is a bunch of these teams, you're a beggar. You can't be a chooser. I mean, this is set. This is set up obviously for Bama and Georgia and those teams that year in, Ohio State, perhaps Oregon, year in, year out, that could have made the 4-team playoff. That we're going to give you an extra slot, but you're going to get in. But it's going to be difficult. It's also worth remembering that they're not going to reseed. I know some playoff systems will reseed as they go. So much like the tournament, you'll have the NCAA basketball tournament, you'll have a bracket, and you're going to follow your bracket. But, I mean, those games you mentioned get me all hot and bothered. So those,
without question.
I mean, all of them are
again,
fantastic.
I love the on-campus nature. I wish the quarterfinals were on campus as well. I wish we went one more round on campus. Unfortunately, we'll just do the 5 through 12. Let me play it out in this manner. Go back to the NCAA tournament analogy. Houston as the number 3 team in the college basketball rankings. Let's call Arizona as a 2 seed, the 5th team in the college basketball rankings. Entering the NCAA tournament, I don't think you would have had a huge discrepancy between Houston or Arizona getting to the Final Four. Let's play that out in this college football playoff. If you went 3-5 for the college football rankings, Oregon would be 3rd. Their path, again, is hosting Memphis, and then they get Utah on a neutral field. That is as the number 3 seeded team. Again, they don't win the Big Ten, so they can't get a bye. Ohio State gets the bye, so they fall into the play-in category. Alabama, 2 spots lower than them, just 2 spots lower. They host Michigan and then play Ohio State. So think about that. 2 spots, 3-5. The 3 team gets Memphis at home and then Utah on a neutral field. The 5 team gets to host the defending national champion.
Leave Memphis alone.
And then they get Ohio State. It is such a massive drop-off from these teams that can finish right there near the top of college football, like 3-5.
Okay, so what's the next? So what's the takeaway? The takeaway.
I guess I bring all this up to say, should the Big 12 and the ACC get the automatic burst to be the buys?
Wow. Again, the answer is they will, at least for now. They'll change all this, by the way. The
Big Ten and the SEC is not going to be happy
but
about.
Agree, but they're going to give the ACC, here's your bone, ACC, okay? But this is all you're getting. You're getting Florida State, but you're not getting 9-3 Clemson or perhaps even a 10-2 Louisville or someone like that. You're getting, or it's going to be more difficult to get that. We'll give you the 4th seed, but we're taking back. Ole Miss is making it. Texas is making it. We're going to try to have 3 or 4 teams that are in the college football playoff.
Wasn't the Big 12 winner this year like a 2-loss team? If I'm not mistaken, was it like Oklahoma State? Weren't they all right there as a 2-loss team? I don't know. Maybe I'm just forgetting somebody out of the Big 12, which probably is.
Well, did Oklahoma State made and they got blown out? Yeah, it was Texas. Because remember Texas.
Oh, Texas.
Yeah, Texas and
okay.
Oklahoma State. The difference between
we
Texas
have had
and the next
years
teams
where the Big 12 winner has been a 2-loss team.
Sure, we have.
So,
absolutely.
For example, let's just say the Big 12 winner this year is a 2-loss Utah team. So a 2-loss Utah team is going to get the bye. But Oregon losing on a last-second field goal to Ohio State will not get the bye.
Let me give you.
And yet their path will look entirely different.
Absolutely.
Than what an Oklahoma State path would.
We got to take a break, but let me give you 2 more thoughts on this. Okay, number 1, the playoff committee does this, And it's the biggest talking point, even early when about halfway through the season, they start to put out their rankings, their college football playoff rankings, is they will put teams in the top 25 to make it look like, well, maybe one team beat three top 25 teams.
Yeah.
You have to watch out for the manipulation of the rankings. So how are the non-conference champions, which is what you're talking about, the Oregons, the Notre Dames,
Right.
the Penn States, the Memphis, how are those teams
The order of that
going to be manipulated?
The order of that is going to be so significant.
A thousand
to the
percent.
playoff. Whereas in the NCAA tournament, men's basketball,
it's
not.
The second thing and the final thing would be on this is then how are conference championship games viewed? I mean, Georgia last year tripped up one time in the conference championship, and I'm stunned. It cost them everything.
Right.
The SEC, I mean, usually you lose that game and it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Oh, you lost to Alabama and you lost on a neutral. I mean, they come up with every excuse, and I'm not even saying some years I totally agree with it. Last year, for instance, I thought Georgia kind of got hosed. Maybe they had Georgia fatigue, but, conference championship games, are we going to still do them? If a conference, now, the Big 12, you mentioned the Big 12. Big 12 they ran into this. They had a conference championship game, KB, to where they felt like they were, their team would go and would lose, and they'd be out the college football playoff because they lost in the college football in the conference championship game. So someone's going to cut a conference championship game.
Huge fan of 12 teams, huge fan of these matchups, all of that. But I just want to remind people out there is going to be a big drop-off in some of these rankings within the playoff format.
You're
the
right.
paths to winning it all will look very different for some teams, and I don't think we fully grasp that, and obviously we'll see how the next couple months play out.
Quick break. We'll wrap up the hour. Reminder, Fever GM Lynn Dunn joins us 9 o'clock here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Give away a 4-pack of tickets to the Fever and Mercury coming up Friday night, 7:30. The one and only Lynn Dunn going to join us here on the other side.
Yeah, can't wait to talk with Coach. What we missed last week, did we not? I feel like we missed last week.
Caught up a few times in the Olympic break, but yeah, a couple items to get to, certainly with her today.
Yeah, 61 straight games for the women on Team USA. I wonder what she saw, what she liked and did not like in that conversation. Then obviously the Fever get going on Friday with just a handful of games. And I have no idea if the Fever are going to come out and look great or if they're going to stumble early on here after being off for a month. You have any idea? How would you know?
I would hope
you're a GM or a coach.
I'd hope they would benefit more than other teams because
remember what happened right before the break.
No one of note really was in the Olympics, and again the schedule is very manageable compared to what they had. So again, Lynn Dunn going to join us on the other side, and then we'll get back into the Colts combo.
Yeah, so we'll do that. We still have a pop quiz coming up later on today. So busy 9 o'clock hour. Lynn Dunn, Fever GM, joins us next here. Hour number 3, Wake Up Call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yes, the return of the Fever. Coming up, Friday, 7:30, Sunday afternoon. It'll be the Mercury on Friday. It'll be Seattle on Sunday. And I'm going to guess that Lynn Dunn is itching to watch her squad back on the floor. She joins us right now, the Fever GM. Coach, I'm sure you've been counting down the days to August 16th. It is almost here to see your squad back on the floor. How has the break been for you?
Good morning, guys. It's great to hear y'all again. Yes, exciting weekend coming up with the Mercury on Friday, and they've got 3 Olympians, 3 gold medal Olympians, and then you've got Seattle on Sunday that has a gold medal Olympian and a bronze medal Olympian. So if folks want to see the Fever and some medals, come on out this weekend. It's been a great break for us. We've had time to practice. get fresh legs, kind of revitalize ourselves, have a mini training camp. So we're excited to get started again.
Fever GN Lim Dunn with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Coach, I was wondering, we just kind of mentioned last segment, it's so odd having a month off in the middle. Usually, an all-star break, whatever it is, but a full month off is not normal. You guys, you mentioned there, a chance to rest, a chance to have a little mini training camp. Do you have any gut feeling on how you all will come out and play here in this kind of alternate second half of the season? Is there any way to know?
Not any way to know other than, I've watched all the practices, and I'm optimistic that we've had a time to work on the things that we needed to get better at. I had a chance to rest, but so have all the other teams. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to stop and wait for us to catch up. So everybody's going to come out of this break, raring to go, and you've got teams that are trying to hold on to their playoff spot, and then you've got others going to try to get in. So it's going to be a battle right down to the very end.
You mentioned practice. I know having you on the last several weeks, you've harped on, hey, defense. We got to get better at defense. It reminded me of the Pacers around Christmas time when Coach Carlisle would come on here and stress defense, and then we saw Andrew Nemhard go into the starting lineup. Do you feel like this month you've got better at defense watching practices?
Well, I can say this. We've certainly worked on it. We really worked on individual defense, team defense, rotations, the areas that we need to get better. And when you look at, we're scoring enough points to win. We just need to take about 5 points away from every opponent. Don't let them score 86 points. Let them score 80, but that's it.
You know that voice. She is the one and only Lynn Dunn. She's with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Fever Mercury will give away 4 tickets to that here coming up in a few minutes. That is Friday night. I believe 7th right now in the standings. 8 teams make the playoffs, and you've got a little bit of cushion. You got a 3-game lead over the next team that would be knocking on that playoff door. If I told you on May 1st, Coach, you'd be sitting here when you return from the Olympic break, what would you have said?
Well, I always thought this team, with the addition of Caitlin Clark, second year for Rookie of the Year, Aaliyah Boston, had the potential to be a playoff team. We had to stay healthy. We had to get better during training camp. I didn't realize how difficult the schedule was going to be early. I didn't realize what the league had thrown at us. But I honestly thought this team had a chance to be a playoff team. Now, did I think we would have won this many games this quick? Probably not.
6 days until the trade deadline. You expecting any moves?
Now we're talking. You guys, you're keeping up with it. I expect to see some interesting things right down the stretch. The problem in the WNBA, guys, is we have a hard salary cap. There's just not a lot of money. There's not a way to maneuver like in some of the other pro leagues. So I don't expect some great big slam bam thing. Now, you may see a couple of the players that played in the Olympics, Miesemann and Gabby Williams, Belgium and France are still available to be picked up by a team, but there's not a whole lot of money to pick them up.
Were you surprised how close that gold medal game was? You brought up Gabby Williams, who was the one that...
Guys, let me tell you something. I about lost my mind watching the men's gold medal game, and then I turn around the next day and watch the women's, and I'm like, I'm near a heart attack, as close as it was. But let's remember this. France is good. Their men's team's good. Their women's team's good, and they were at home, and their crowd was crazy. And I just thought both games were fantastic. And, Steph Curry pulled it out for them at the end. Our women, pulled it out for us at the end, and it was just an amazing way to finish the Olympic weekend with 2 gold medals in men's and women's basketball.
The final shot that needed to be a 3, feet on the line, I assume you saw immediately it was a 2-pointer. I guess, what was your reaction when that shot went up?
Hey, I'm always watching the feet. Always watching the feet because, wherever the feet are is going to determine what that shot is. It was pretty obvious to me she was significantly over the line. You got to give her credit. My God, hit a 3, then hit a 2. But what about those shots Steph Curry hit?
I know.
Holy
Incredible.
moly.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
It doesn't get better, does it? It really.
I don't know how it could.
No, back-to-back, making France weep. I guess that was a good thing. Lynn Dunn, Fever GM with us, Payless Liquors Hotline. Coach, I guess I'll ask you this just because I know Caitlin Clark was asked about it yesterday, and then there's a piece in the Star this morning. The 3-on-3 league, the unrivaled league that's going to run in your offseason, the WNBA offseason. It's no, you have players on your team. It's no secret because of the pay. Some players go overseas, right? Have other jobs, go overseas in the offseason. Caitlin was asked about it. She didn't deny it. She didn't say yes, obviously. If she wanted to join that league, you guys, she would be, I guess, allowed to do so. What would you make of that if she did that this offseason?
Well, absolutely, the players are allowed to do it. What they do in their off season really is up to them. We hope they're training. We hope they're staying in shape. We hope they're resting. But she and Aaliyah Boston or Lexi or Lou or any of them, they have the option to participate if they want to. However, the last time I talked to Caitlin, it's nothing against 3-on-3, but she wants to play some 5-on-5 somewhere. But I don't anticipate her going overseas. But she is still evaluating an invitation to be a part of Unrivaled. She has been invited.
Again, Lynn Dunn with us here, Fever GM. Coach, what did you do during the Olympic break? What are on the Lynn Dunn hobbies list? We've had you on quite often. We need to know a little bit more about you away from the game.
Well, okay, now we're getting personal here. All right. Well,
sure.
First of all, I spent part of it with COVID, which was a real bummer.
Oh.
Yeah. Hey, let me tell you what, guys, don't mess around now with COVID. You get it again, you lay down and rest because it's no fun.
Are you good? Are you back to health?
I'm back to my health.
Okay, good.
I went to Tennessee, checked on my house back in Tennessee to make sure it was okay. Did a lot of reading. I'm a reader. I read everything. I read serial killer books, romance books, leadership books. You name it, I read it.
Look at that. Do you have a favorite book you could maybe suggest for the audience out there?
Oh, my gosh. I don't even know how. I do like Kevin Eastman's book, Why the Best Are the Best. It's a great book.
We might need a Lynn Dunn book club.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wrote down. We need to do this every week.
What a great idea. We can have the book of the week. The book of the week. I love it. I'm going to blend in some murder and some sex, if that's okay.
You're damn right it is.
Was that bourbon and what was the other word there, Coach?
How about this? Murder, sex, and leadership. I like it.
Boom.
The big three.
3 core values right there from Lynn Dunn. Man, can you imagine a mid-court, read a chapter a night after a Fever game with Lynn Dunn at mid-court.
That's great.
Unbelievable.
Hey, I think people are going to start listening in now when we start having the big 3 book of the week. Yeah.
That is the biggest understatement in the history of this show. Coach, we usually ask you for a trivia question, and in the middle of this interview, your public relations staff, I guess, sent out a press release to remind people out there just how much things have increased for your franchise this season. Ticket sales, TV ratings, certainly schedule and record has gotten better. The question that I'm going to ask, and we'll let you provide the first answer, maybe a phone a friend to Lynn Dunn. As I scroll through this email, there is a mention in here, Fever concessions at the Fieldhouse have seen an increased popularity of over 300% more hot dogs this season and blank amount of pounds more popcorn. So how about this? Mark Dighton, you can take some calls offline here, 317-239-1070. Within 5 pounds.
Okay.
Are we good on that?
I think that's fair.
Within 5 pounds. And again, you guys have played, 26 games so far this season? I'm guessing a little less than half have probably been at home because I know you've got a lot more home games coming up here to end the year. Within 5 pounds, how many more pounds of popcorn has the Fieldhouse sold at Fever games this season? Lynn Dunn, you get the first guess, okay? So you are kind of the phone a friend.
Well, popcorn doesn't weigh very much, so it's hard to guess with these pounds. You know what I'm saying?
Hey.
Like now, I know a hot dog weighs more than a piece of popcorn. I don't know. I don't know how many more pounds. Is it? You want me to give you a percentage or a number?
Give us a number. And look, I mean, you're a champion. We just don't hand out participation trophies. Murder, sex,
but I'm
bourbon.
not
Here we
good with
go.
numbers
Come on now.
Math wasn't mine. I'm going to go. I don't know, 100 more pounds.
100 more pounds is what Lynn Dunn has offered up here. Mark Dykton, we'll take some calls and see if someone can get within 5. They could use Lynn Dunn's answer if they'd like. They could use another number if they would like. Coach, we'll just end with this. You know what you're doing. I'll say that.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm more interested in hot dogs because I'm a hot dog aficionado. You name it, I can put anything on that hot dog.
Well, I'll say this. We might need to get you in the Joey Chestnut Kobayashi competition coming up here.
No, that's way over my head. I'm talking about what goes on, not what I can't eat them all.
Well, now you've left the cliffhanger like a great writer, like the great author that you read. What goes on a Lynn Dunn hot dog?
Slaw, pickles, mustard, chili, cheese, onions.
The whole shebang?
You're from Tennessee. Slaw goes on everything.
That's right. Slaw goes on everything, and then you need. It's called Heartburn City.
Unbelievable. Gosh, I'm salivating right now.
That does sound good.
At 9:12 on a Wednesday morning. Coach, we can't thank you enough. Good luck coming back Friday night. We'll be watching certainly, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thanks, guys. Let's think about that book club now.
I'm all ears. I'm all ears. That's the one and only Lynn Dunn right there.
I did not want to bring this up with her, and we haven't the last couple days. But you know Dave Portnoy of Barstool.
Wait, can I interject? Did I get a murder, sex, and bourbon?
I mean,
was it in that order?
She's like, yeah, I read leadership books, romance novels.
Is there anyone like her?
It's a big difference between a romance novel and, John Calipari's book on leadership. Those are two very different things.
If you'd like to call, 317-239-1070, because the guesses that we've had so far are way, way off.
Now, Mark, you have the correct answer, right?
Yes.
Okay. Again, within 5 pounds, how many more pounds of popcorn has been sold this season at Fever Games compared to last year? And I hate to give it away, but I thought Lynn Dunn was pretty darn accurate.
Yeah, Lynn Dunn was pretty good on it. Yeah, you could use her answer to
Now, where
help
were you going with Portnoy?
Okay, so Portnoy, he makes massive bets, as you know, okay? He's also a huge Caitlin Clark fan. He's one of the guys that would have been all over Twitter. Had Team USA lost to France, he would have been all over Twitter. Do we have a winner, Mark?
No, I need these guesses to be a little more reasonable. I mean, again, popcorn doesn't weigh that much, so people guessing in the 700s.
Oh, my God.
Let's calm down a little bit.
I mean, listen to Lynn Dunn. She said, popcorn doesn't weigh a whole lot here.
We've kind of given you the answer the last, 3 minutes here.
Lynn
just
Dunn
a little bit.
What a legend. She is just such a legend.
Well, I want to do the book club. We need like a little open to go with that and what she's reading and everything else. Anyway, so, Portnoy is a big Caitlin Clark fan, and he was going to crush Team USA had they lost without Caitlin Clark over the weekend. He was going to be one of those that did it, okay? He has put a $100,000 bet on the Fever winning the WNBA Finals.
And that pays out what?
It would pay him $10.1 million on his $100,000 bet.
That's a little different than my Pacer tease win-loss over under
It's
bet.
plus 10,000. He says Caitlin Clark, top 3 player in the league, maybe the best. She got rest for the first time in a year. Aaliyah Boston and her chemistry grows every game. They started 1-8, 10-7 since then, and improving. I had to do it. A $100,000 bet to win 10.1 mil if the Fever win the WNBA Finals.
Now, I said this to Lynn Dunn when we had her on. I mean, they got 14 games to go. 9 are at home. 6 of them are against the bottom 4 teams in the league. So nearly half of their remaining games against the basement. They would have to fall on their face to miss the playoffs.
Wow, I know. Let's mark this tape, but you're right.
They are 3. I mean,
you're right.
I'm speaking in reality here. Like, they're 3 games up on the 9th team right now. And, they would have to go something along the lines of like 4-10 the rest of the year, I think, to truly, truly blow it. And again, their schedule, and I'm saying that with their schedule factored in, all the home games and just the ease at it. It sounds like Mark Dykton could have an answer. Mark, bring this person on the line.
By the way, I do think the Fever.
Who do we got, Mark?
Could have got to the 6th seed. I still think they can.
Hey, Shane.
Hey, gentlemen. How are you this morning?
Shane, how many pounds of popcorn are you guessing here? More that have been sold at Gainbridge Fieldhouse for Fever games this season since last year.
I guessed 100. I'll go with Lynn Dunn.
Good for you. Got yourself a family 4-pack on a Wednesday.
Shane,
there you go.
98 more pounds. That is within 5. Mark Dykton will take, I think all I need is email, Mark, from Shane here. How about this? You want to throw one more at it?
Yeah, let's go.
Fever mascot, Freddie Fever. This is unbelievable that they included this one. He's seen a 150% increase in appearance requests.
So it's literally good for every part of the Fever's business, including the interactions with Freddie Fever.
Transactions in the team store, no surprise here, are up 700% compared to this time last. Like, we all know the TV ratings.
I know.
This stuff is glorious.
I wonder how much money that means. Like I wonder what the monetary value is when it says they're up 700%, because I'm looking at it right here.
I know. I'm seeing, what am I seeing here? Team stores experience a jump of more than 1,000% in net sales. Yeah, trying to read this as the show goes along.
It doesn't have an actual number to it. You know, they made this last year, and they've already made this number. But obviously the percentages are wild. Congratulations, Shane. Family 4-pack for you. Good job.
Doors will open 90 minutes before tip for all home games, so that 98-pound popcorn number can certainly increase. 7:30 tip coming up here on Friday.
I had about 6 guesses that were in the 700-pound range. I'm like, people, what are we doing here?
What did you make of her answer on the unrivaled 3x3? I mean, Caitlin Clark
I'm still
could
trying
play.
to wrap my mind around the book club, to be honest with you.
You don't want to pivot to the unrivaled 3-on-3 women's basketball league?
I like that idea, though. Lynn Dunn Book of the Month Club or something like that.
So offer is on the table. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Angel Reese has committed?
She has,
and
yes.
there's a team of rookies, right?
Yes.
That has not been announced, but there are multiple other rookies that have yet to be announced.
Correct. I mean, their thing is they're going to slowly announce who is going to be in this league, and the money is supposed to be.
Who do they play?
I mean, I would guess. I mean, they're playing each other, right?
Okay, so this is just all,
it's just
again,
tournament
basically.
basically.
Mark, you mind playing this clip number 7? This was what Caitlin Clark said yesterday. I'd call it a non-answer, right? Based off what Caitlin Clark was asked yesterday about this?
Honestly, I'm just focused on this right now, one thing at a time. Can't always just be moving on to the next. My focus is right here.
I mean, it
sounds like PR statement 101 to me.
I did see that the players would have an option to have, help me with the term here. Not when you have say in the league, when you have actual value, and they would own a piece of the league. I mean, this is a
they
money.
Have some equity
yeah,
stake?
equity. That's exactly. A lot of players, even Grace Berger, who I know I mentioned earlier, a lot of these players go overseas because the money isn't good enough in the WNBA.
I mean, think back to when we had Grace in studio back in January. She was talking about playing overseas.
Yeah, I think it was in Spain or something like that. And so this 3-on-3 league would replace some of that. The money would be good enough and would be better, I think, the release said, than all these other leagues, so you wouldn't have to go overseas. The unfortunate thing is someone like a Grace Berger, who obviously isn't playing for the Fever, I doubt she's invited. I hate saying that. I don't know, but I don't know if she would be invited to be in this 3-on-3 league. Hey, I mean, right now you got to capitalize on the craze. I mean, women's athletics, women's basketball has no doubt hit a high. And I think with Caitlin Clark, she's like, I'll play in this. The actual paycheck probably isn't worth me playing for this, but the equity in this league is worth me being part of it. I think that might be where you get Caitlin Clark's involvement.
And just remind people on what the WNBA calendar looks like. You stop in October, and then you pick back up again in May. And now this year they played a little shorter schedule, right? Because the Olympic break. I think next year, if I remember, Kathy Englehart, WNBA commissioner, talked about maybe wanting to add a couple of games. Again, this year, obviously you had the Olympic break schedule, part of it that you had to work through here. But, theoretically, you're off from, October to April. So, that would leave some time to do something like this. Boy, I'll tell you what. I mean, Lynn Dunn, the bingo card, we had great to hear that she recovered from COVID. We had COVID, we had bourbon, we had sex, and we had murder. And we had a team that is listening to some stuff at the WNBA trade deadline, but doesn't sound like, sounds like deals are difficult.
I would like
And they've worked on defense, correct?
Well, they have, yes.
Which is much needed.
Which is good. I would like Lynn Dunn to read off some of the titles of those romance novels.
Should we get her in studio in the offseason?
I think absolutely.
Have a little Lynn Dunn book schedule segment.
We've never had her in studio, have we?
We've not.
I didn't
Grace
think so.
Berger, Lexi Hall in studio earlier this year. But shout out to Freddie Fever. A lot more appearances.
Well, good job for Freddie Fever. So good stuff. You miss any of that, that'll be up Podcast Center 1075thefan.com.
Sounds like I might need to put a delay on some of those book titles maybe.
I mean, I think we're good with all that, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can venture off basketball.
I mean, it's not Juju Brents with,
with an F-bomb.
5 cuss words in 11 minutes. That's a pretty good ratio there from the Warren product.
That 50 Shades of Grey was pretty popular, and there was some stuff in there that I don't think we could say.
Thank you to Linda.
There's a lot of stuff.
Shout out to you. Shane, I'll send you those here in a bit for the 4-pack of tickets. 98 pounds more popcorn.
Good job, Shane.
Pop quiz a little bit later. You want to talk a little DeForest Buckner, Colts-Texans rivalry?
Yeah, let's do that at 9:30.
Okay, we'll push the pop quiz to the end of the show today. Go ahead and start off a morning check now.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Yeah, reminder, coming up tonight and tomorrow, it's those joint practices against the Arizona Cardinals. JMV will be out there starting at 3 o'clock, so go say what's up to him or heckle him or do whatever you want to do there. Should be some good radio later on here on The Fan. Yesterday was Coordinator Day. We've heard a lot from Gus Bradley today. Let's hear from your guy, Brian Mason, the special teams corner, former Notre Dame coach, right? I'm not wrong there.
Zionsville product.
Okay, that's what I thought. So he met with the media yesterday. The reason I'm playing this is, we talked earlier in the week about Matt Gay, under the league average field goals over 50 yards last year, missed one there against the Broncos on Sunday. So Mason was asked about his place kicker. Here's what he had to say.
Matt's just got to be able to trust it a little bit better and just attack the ball. He was trying to just kind of finesse and place the ball a little bit, and he knows that. That's just a little thing that he can clean up mentally, just to go attack the ball and swing all the way through it instead of just trying to, make sure that he perfectly places the ball. He just needs to trust it, attack it, and go full speed at it.
What do you make of that? He needs to attack the ball.
Again, I'd be lying to you if I knew anything about, proper kicker knowledge there. But, like we talked about earlier in the week, you can't have him at 61%. You're paying him way too much money to be a below average long distance kicker. That's a strength of his. He is known as a long distance kicker. So you need that to be better than that. So that's kind of how I view it. I'm not going to overreact, though, to one, missed kick. I mean, he barely missed it. Just pulled it a little bit left there. So, yeah, those are my thoughts here. Major League Baseball, the Reds are unreal, and the
Don't
Cubs
look
stink.
now, but here come the Red Legs.
I really think they can get on a run. They just need Hunter Green to pitch a lot.
Oh, God.
I mean, I think on Monday we were making fun of them being last in the Central, and they're up to third, and I think they're only a game back of St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken.
Come on now.
They're making it third in the Central.
I love it.
I'm gonna keep this recording, so then a week from now, when the Reds have lost 4 or 5,
and we don't talk about
you're
them.
off the Reds train again, I'll just play this for you.
It won't be difficult. Cubs fall 2-1 to the Guardians. Guardians won 4 straight. I think they had the best record in baseball, if I'm not mistaken. Indianapolis Indians 5-4 over St. Paul. Quickly, couple NFL nuggets. Former Purdue running back, now a rookie with the Giants, Tyrone Tracy Jr. Boy, it looked bad yesterday. Kind of a non-contact ankle injury. Is actually on special teams. He might return kickoffs or punts for the Giants. It looked bad. Had an air cast on. Got obviously carted off the field. It's now this morning announced as a grade 2 low ankle sprain. Not even a high ankle sprain. He could be out 3 to 4 weeks there. May miss the beginning of the season. J.J. McCarthy, torn meniscus in his right knee. Sam Darnold now locked in, the starter there in Minnesota. And Hollywood Brown, wide receiver, who is now in Kansas City with Pat Mahomes, he's going to miss about a month or so with a sternum injury. So nothing affects the Kansas City Chiefs, but one of their wide receivers is going to be out probably about a month or so.
What was on the Lynn Dunn hot dog again?
Slaw,
everything
mustard.
but ketchup, pretty much.
Yeah, slaw and mustard for sure.
Gosh.
Onions.
Yeah.
It's probably a beer-battered, hot dog as well.
Unbelievable.
She had 5 or 6 things. Yeah.
That was good.
That's heartburn, baby.
If you missed it, Lynn Dunn, unbelievable with us earlier. Pacers in-season tournament schedule announced. Again, they are in the same group. The Heat, the Bucks, the Pistons, and the Raptors. The Pacers, the 2 seed in that. These games will be primarily on Friday nights in November coming up this season. We'll see if the Pacers can defend their trip to the championship game where they took on the Lakers in Vegas last year.
That hot dog comes with a complimentary side of Pepto-Bismol, by the way.
Eddie Garrison texts us. It was chili and cheese were the other ones that we mentioned.
Thank you for
Mark,
rounding
did you
it out.
Mark, did you want to wrap up the morning check down with your IU football offensive line news again or not?
Why do you want to
about
bring
that
the
one.
mood of the room down?
Okay. They lost their right tackle or right guard, right?
Yeah, their projected starting right guard is out for the season with a knee injury.
Oh, Signetti. Not good. You see, Texas has now lost their second starting running back. They lost their starting running back. Then, like, the third down back who could play and catch passes, he blew his knee out
And
as
they're
well.
supposed to be a playoff team,
They're not
right?
a playoff team.
Really? I thought they were preseason ranked like top 5.
Well, they're number 4. I don't think they're a playoff team.
Oh, you don't think they're in the top 12?
I do not.
Wow.
I do not. I think they're going to get a little bit of a SEC wake-up call.
Interesting.
That's what I think. And I think Quinn Ewers is like, why did I come back? I should have probably just went pro, but we shall see.
That was a loaded quarterback draft. I feel like
know.
coming back was smart for him.
I think he'll still be drafted high. I just don't think they'll have a great record, as good of a record, obviously, as last year.
You guys hear that Caleb Williams wanted to play the Olympic 3x3 flag football?
Oh, did he?
He said in Hard Knocks last night. See?
Did he?
Pros want to play in the flag football in the Olympics. I told you. He's interested.
The last thing I remember from the Hard Knocks before I went to sleep was he was talking how Lil Wayne knew who he was. That he met Wheezy, and Wheezy knew who Caleb Williams was. And he found that to be pretty cool. So we shall see. All right, there's your morning check down. Coming up on the other end, DeForest Buckner had a quote about the Houston Texans in that rivalry. We'll let you hear that. And how would you categorize Colts v. Texans? We'll talk about it next. Pop quiz coming up in about 25 minutes. We got you to 10 right here. Wake Up Call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, an absolutely epic interview with Lynn Dunn just wrapped up. That'll be up on the podcast. Mark, I think you might have a rejoinder or two out of that conversation.
Yeah, I think I can whip one up.
With the Fever GM. We'll push pop quiz back here a few minutes to close things out. Again, Colts back to practice tonight, 6 o'clock from Grand Park, 6 to 8. Tomorrow night, 6 to 7:20, weather permitting. I know a little rain in the forecast for tomorrow night, so we'll keep an eye on that. The Arizona Cardinals in town. Jonathan Gannon, the former Colts assistant, under Frank Reich from 2018 to 2020, moved on to Philly with Nick Sirianni, and like Shane Steichen, became a head coach. So that'll be kind of the big happenings there as we put a bow tie on Grand Park for the Colts here in 2024.
Yeah, and I know you'll have coverage on the website. We'll obviously talk about it tomorrow with what we see with the Colts in Arizona again. To me, offensive line, a sharp Anthony Richardson, unlike the other night, in the secondary not being whipped by Marvin Harrison Jr. and others. We'll dive into that. One quick thing, and again, pop quiz here in about 15 minutes. And just one thing I wanted to bring up. We mentioned and we played the Anthony Richardson sound earlier in the show with Kay Adams, who is on FanDuel TV. If you follow her on Twitter or anything else, I mean, a lot of her stuff now is out there. She's doing interviews all over these training camps, and she interviewed Steichen and AR and Jonathan Taylor, and she also interviewed DeForest Buckner. And so last night I was watching that interview, and one of the clips that's working its way around the internet this morning and last night, KB, is DeForest Buckner talking about the rivalry with the Houston Texans, obviously the way last season ended, and now game one coming up this season. So I have a couple questions, just wanted to discuss it. Let's hear Buckner on with Kay Adams talking about the Texans.
I definitely think there's some bad blood between the two teams for sure. You know what I mean? Especially, CJ's been talking a little bit in the offseason. Zaire's been talking a little bit in the offseason. And, we at the end of the day, we split. You know what I mean? We won the first one, they won the second one. Obviously, the second one was bigger to get them to the playoffs. And there's definitely some bad blood in the water. So, it's definitely one of those rivalries you got to look out for.
All right, so I like the way he said it, that you got to look out for. Number one, this happened with swiftness, did it not? I mean, even going back early in the season, it was week 2 when they played in Houston. Was it not week 2? Am I wrong there?
Yeah,
it was week
right.
2, wasn't it? I couldn't remember if it was week 2 or 3. I mean, I viewed the Texans as, not a great team. I like C.J. Stroud enough, but I watched that game thinking, hey, you just lost to Jacksonville. You need to go and be 1-1, and let's see the maturation of Anthony Richardson, and then obviously the heartbreak. And there's been some chirping back and forth. I guess, how would you? It's obviously not, Cowboys, Eagles, or Steelers, Ravens right now, but are you surprised this has morphed into, okay, this is the rivalry of the AFC South again? Jacksonville sitting there saying, hey, we might win the league or go to the playoffs or be second, so it might not even be the two best teams in the South. And I like that this went from, I feel like, 0 to 100. It used to be maybe Tennessee. Obviously, the Colts had the thing with New England, but I like how, in my mind, this went 0 to 100, basically, that it went from a ho-hum game, and now both teams feel like they're pretty good. And I don't know how you would categorize the rivalry, but I'm hoping in the next couple years, it's one reason I hope AR is good, is it could really blossom into being, Steelers, Bengals, Steelers, Ravens, Cowboys, Eagles. You give it a few years, we could start to see that type of thing. And I think the AFC South needs it. I mean, no one cares about Jacksonville. And right now, Tennessee is a 5, 6, 7 win football team.
Well, no one cares about Jacksonville. They sure as hell have accomplished a lot more than the Colts in the last few years.
There's no doubt about it.
I don't, I'm all for a little extra intrigue, hype, entertainment, however you want to describe it. But, I mean, at some point, the Colts have got to do their part in creating rivalries and not just with their words.
Well, I mean, that was the other side. Is it even a rivalry? I mean, do other people view it that way?
I get, C.J. Stroud has talked and Zaire Franklin has talked and Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud, by all accounts, are very close. Naturally, I think when you have a guy drafted 2 and 4 overall, they both play quarterback. It's the same draft, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to build a bit of a, intrigue around it. But, I mean, to even act like this compares to historical nature.
No, it doesn't.
Some of the other rivalries that you just, put out there, obviously not. certainly the game last year was monumental. That goes without saying what that Week 18 game meant. But I don't know if I can, is there this rich venom in this?
Does it feel forced a little bit?
It feels forced. But again, anytime you have a player drafted 2 and 4 overall and they play quarterback, that's going to be there. Now, if you're the Titans, you might sit there and say, wait a minute, the Colts at one point beat us, 10 straight times? We felt like that was more of a rivalry. If you look at the Colts in the Mike Vrabel era, Vrabel got the better of the Colts a lot. Is that more of a rivalry? The Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014. Should that be a little bit more relevant, prevalent? So, yeah, I get why, Buckner says that or why the Colts feel that way. But, I also think when you haven't won a division title in a decade and every other team has won the division at least twice.
Yeah, you got to win
in that
something.
time frame.
Right.
You've got to do your part on it. And, so I understand where it's coming from, but, this ain't, Steelers, Ravens, to your point.
The other thing in those interviews, I don't know if you saw this or not, Anthony Richardson says he could score at least, 10, 11, 12 points in the NBA right now.
Yeah, that's ludicrous.
And he could beat, and he said he could beat LeBron James in a dunk contest because LeBron's 40 years old.
What did Tyreek Hill say the other day about Noah Lyles? Stay in your lane.
I think there's a better chance that Tyreek Hill could beat Noah Lyles than Anthony Richardson averages 10 or 12 a game in the NBA.
We get Rick Carlisle next season. We got to ask him, hey, do you think Anthony Richardson could average 12 in your offense?
How many?
I'll get a lot of open shots. Now.
You get a lot of open shots in that offense.
Don't think you see a lot of 6'5", 250-pound dudes in the NBA. And from what I've heard, I don't think the Anthony Richardson jump shot is necessarily feathery. Yeah. So I don't know if we want to go that route. 10 to 12 every night in the league?
That's a lot. When he said that, he was like, matter of fact, he's like, oh, yeah, I think I could average 10, 12 points. And she's like, you're so optimistic. And I'm like, yeah, you think he's optimistic?
You and Anthony Richardson do have something in common.
Uh-oh, what's that?
You both are Crocs men.
Oh, don't act like I didn't send that to JMV this morning.
Oh, you fire that off?
Well, JMV hates the Crocs.
He does.
The Crocs are like an in thing. Not that I'm wearing it because I'm the cool old guy, but... I had some sandals. I forget the name of them, but they showed my toes, and no one wants to see my disgusting fat feet. But Crocs hide all of that.
Yeah,
and they're kind of stylish, kind of.
Rosie painted my toes a few weeks ago, so for about a week there, I was rocking pink toes, and I will occasionally
big
rock
Caleb Williams fan, Kevin Bone.
Yeah, how about that?
I was rocking some sandal. I occasionally will rock sandals. I just don't really want to put on tennis shoes. And I'm like, gosh, these pink toes, I don't know if I can go out in public. That's a lot of explaining to do. Especially if Rosie's not with me.
Yeah, someone would take your picture and they put it on the internet.
And I'm just I don't really feel...
You'd have to address it.
Yeah, I don't have 4.5 minutes to really explain all that. But if I heard Anthony Richardson correct yesterday, how many pairs of Crocs do you have? Just one?
No, I only have 2. Yeah, I only have 2, but I'm thinking
2 seems like a lot to me.
They're having a sale right now, and so I might grab another color or two.
Oh.
You stash them away.
What are Sweeney, ear to the ground on Croc sales?
Well, I get all their emails, Mark. I get littered with whatever. These are the real tree camo ones. That's what I got. That's
camo
what I got.
And blue, right? Is that correct?
I got a black pair. Yeah.
Black pair. Oh, those are camo. Those are official.
Oh yeah, those are good ones.
I believe Richardson said yesterday he has 60 pairs of Crocs.
Well,
60, right?
His paychecks even going back to, I'm sure, later in high school in the NIL there that they had in Florida. I'm sure a little bit better than maybe
right now
Sports
it sounds
Talk Radio.
Like he's buying diapers for the newborn and he's got Crocs.
How much do Crocs cost? I don't even know. I've never bought a pair in my life.
Okay, so if you get just like a normal, just black pair, just like the normal traditional ones, I would not pay over $40.
I was nervous.
But
I got nervous there.
But some of the ones in the KB, this is what you need to know. They have, you too, Mark. You can put, I don't know what they're called. You can put like stickers, or
like designs
gems.
or something.
Yeah, like designs on them, and so that's a big thing. So yeah, you can end up spending $60, $70 on a pair easily.
By the way, I thought the nail polish would just come off after a couple showers. That stuff is no joke.
No, some of that kid's nail polish is. You're like, this is permanent. This is never coming off.
I had to settle in during a Team USA game and get out the nail polish removal from Maddie's, little area and go to work. Got the cotton balls and everything. We're burying fishes and painting nails at the Bowen household.
I tell you, you should have live streamed that. You talk about hits on the internet. There you go. Boy, the Twitter feed would have been popping. You
paint a nail for every Colts win this year.
Now, we will do the Mayo plop when the Colts and Titans play.
Oh,
again this year, right?
So you saw you have seen now the Will Levis.
I think I'm a Will Levis fan now.
Mayonnaise.
I think I'm all in on Levis.
Are you saying we have to play the mayo plop or we have to do the
Do
mayo?
it, sorry.
We have to do it again?
Yeah. Did you hear what Lynn Dunn puts on her hot dog? We can put some mayo in the coffee.
I didn't hear mayo on her.
Well,
on her
listen, Lynn
thing.
Dunn is a Tennessee Titans fan. I think Lynn
Oh,
Dunn
she
needs to
is.
come in studio and do the mayonnaise plop along with us. You think she'd do that?
I think she's a downtown resident, so maybe it would be just a short little.
I think that might be. It would be
Stroll over
very
here.
random if the Fever GM came in studio to, yes, talk about her team in the offseason and Caitlin Clark, but also put mayonnaise in her coffee for a bunch of sports radio.
Lynn, you a
doofuses.
Hellman's gal? What are we doing here?
I like the Hellman's ad by Will Levis. I do know there will be some Titans fans that are like, hey, you throw 3 interceptions in game number 1, you're going to get mocked more for it. But I tend to think it's pretty funny. And I cannot believe this guy went from irrelevant at Penn State, went to Kentucky football, put mayonnaise in the coffee, and is now making, I would imagine, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, on being that guy.
Yeah, they say America, baby.
Be
Unlike
that
any
guy.
country in the world. God bless our country.
You say that, and then there's a girl who literally did a Hawk Tua joke, and she's making thousands.
What did Kevin Durant, what was his quote about the United States after one of those games? It was a pretty accurate quote.
It was something like, there's a lot of bad BS that happens in this country, but there's also some good.
Pretty accurate, I would
It
say.
is pretty accurate.
From the gold medalist. We got a little prize for the pop quiz, correct?
We got the whammy tickets, right?
Whamfest, Mark Dykton.
Yes, no relation to George Michael. The Wine, Arts, Music, and Microbrew Festival.
That is our acronym right there.
Mhm.
Pair of tickets, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Greenwood coming up this weekend.
This Saturday.
So, give us a call, 317-239-1070.
Yeah, 317-239-1070. We'll wrap up the show. Pop quiz coming up next Wednesday here. Wake Up Call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Just catching up with Eddie Garrison, producer for Jake and Jimmy during the break. They'll have Christy Sides join them today. I know Eddie's a Decatur Central product. Good to hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but it sounded like that Tyrone Tracy injury yesterday in Giants camp, Decatur Central product, obviously Purdue product.
Yeah, it looked bad.
Not as bad as originally thought. Is that correct?
Yeah, grade 2 sprain of the ankle. I mean, he left on a cart with a cast on. That's never good. So you're thinking, he broke something. Apparently, he was in a lot of pain. You know, they kind of rushed out there during special teams, but grade 2, not even a high ankle sprain, a low ankle sprain. He's seen week to week, could miss a month, maybe a little bit like Josh Downs. Think of it like that. May not be there for game 1 or game 2. I think he'll play, and I think he'll play quite a bit for the Giants.
Yeah, by all accounts, had a great start here to his rookie season. Remember Dane Brugler? We had him on. Was really high on him as kind of a day 3 guy out of the backfield. J.J. McCarthy, we saw the Vikings rookie, obviously the Michigan product. He is going to be out with a knee injury for some time. Timetable up in the air. That means Sam Darnold gets his 37th chance to quarterback an NFL team. The Colts will see the Vikings week 9. So we'll see if Sam Darnold's still around come November 3rd.
This time it'll be different. Sam Darnold.
What a radio tease. We'll see if week 9 or 10 if Sam Darnold is still there.
It is funny when
it's his 4th chance.
When you rattle off the quarterbacks the Colts will see to start the season. Stroud, Love, Caleb Williams, Russell Wilson, Lawrence, Levis, Tua, Stroud again, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff. Like they all are
they're good.
Of note.
Yes,
and then
they
all of a sudden you like plug in Darnold or J.J. McCarthy, and it kind of sticks out.
Yeah, there's a
bit
Daniel Jones or Drew Lock later on in the season.
Sure.
Yeah.
A little different. Pop quiz time, 1 through 8. Give us a number.
Let's go caller number 6 today, Mark. Caller number 6.
Well, Dave gave a great effort yesterday
did?
on the pop quiz.
Yeah, almost
we
a
got?
5 for 5 effort. Tom.
Today. Hey, Tom.
Good morning.
Tom, are you a Southsider by chance?
No.
Well, you will be heading to Greenwood for the Wham Fest coming up this weekend, so congrats on that. What side of town do you hail from, Tom?
Northwest originally.
Oh, okay. Like Pike or more northwest than that?
I grew up in Pike Township, actually.
Okay, there you go. Nice. Well, let's go Red Devils. Andy Sweeney, go ahead and throw number 1 at him.
All right, let's get a winner here. All right, question number 1. The Fever return to action on Friday night when they host the Phoenix Mercury. This will be the 3rd meeting of the season between Indiana and Phoenix. Who leads the season series thus far? Phoenix or Indiana? 50-50 shot.
The Fever.
Number 2 here, Tom. Speaking of Indy and Phoenix, the Arizona Cardinals are this week's Colts preseason opponent. The Cardinals own the longest championship drought among the 4 major North American professional sports leagues, as they have not won a league title since 1947. Who currently owns the 2nd longest championship drought? Is it the Cleveland Guardians, the Atlanta Hawks, the Detroit Lions, or the Sacramento Kings?
Oh, my.
Could end it this year?
They could.
Could, very well could end it this year.
Lions.
Could end it this calendar year.
Guardians.
Question.
Tom's a smart dude.
I loved our silence, and I didn't know if you were going to do something. I didn't know if I should say something. Okay,
I was done.
Fair enough. I was going to move on.
I trusted Tom.
Question number 3. The Colts and Cardinals are playing in the preseason for the first time since 1967. How about that? Of the 12 previous preseason
who
games.
cares?
This is a tough one.
Geez.
Of the 12 previous preseason games between the Colts and Cardinals, 7 of them have been played at neutral sites. Which of the following stadiums never hosted a Colts-Cardinals preseason game? Good
Tom,
luck.
I'm sorry, brother.
Tom, good luck, brother. Comiskey Park in Chicago, Fairgrounds Stadium in Louisville, Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, or Memorial Stadium in Austin, Texas.
I refuse to answer that question.
Tom, as much as I want to stand up for Scotty, I don't know if I can. I kind of agree with you.
B.
Oh, you're going with the fairgrounds in Louisville.
I was going to ask, do you even remember what B was?
Yeah, I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
All right, Scott, if you didn't want to make your eyes bleed, here you go. Anthony Richardson, the 7th different quarterback over the last 7 seasons to start for the Colts on opening day in 2023. He became the 7th. The streak should end, boy, Scotty, is this a curse here? On September 8th, here in a few weeks. Can you name the quarterback who started the streak by replacing the injured Andrew Luck in the 2017 season opener?
Ryan Kelly remembered him last week.
Certainly does.
Yeah.
Tolzien.
Look at this.
There we go.
Man.
There you go. All right, final one. On this day in 1959, the American Football League announced charter memberships for 6 franchises. One of the 6 teams never played in the AFL, as they were lured away to join the NFL as an expansion team. Which original AFL team jumped to the NFL before playing a game? Dallas Cowboys, New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons, Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, my. Vikings.
I'll tell you what, I feel bad for Tom.
I do too, because
Scotty,
number 3.
what the hell was number 3?
Number 3 gutted him, and otherwise he did fan. Hey, you want the oil change?
I don't think
you got to get all 5.
Well, can we at least put that number 5? I mean, what in the world? Unbelievable.
Oh, man. I didn't hear Scotty, but I heard obvious with number 3. I don't
said
know if there's
avoid
anything
the
obvious. Oh, avoid the
I don't
obvious.
know. Come on there. Tom, hell of an effort. For the second day in a row, we had a 4 for 5er. Fever, yes, 2-0 to the Mercury. Guardians, with a chance. Need a little hint there on that one.
That's fine.
They are, 9 years longer than the Lions in terms of playoff drought. Tolzien, he was all over that.
That is correct.
And then Vikings.
C. Correct.
Yeah, the one he missed, number 3, the Colts and Cardinals haven't played in the preseason, or they are playing in the preseason for the first time since 1967. Which of the following stadiums never hosted a Colts-Cardinals preseason game? The answer was actually Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. So they played in Chicago, they played in Louisville, they played in Texas. That's a tough one, man.
Start to hand out some fantasy football ownerships in our league coming up here in the next few days, few weeks. Shout out to the great Evan Sherrill from Cluster Truck. We got a Cluster Truck gift card that will go to our winner this season. So thank you very much to Cluster Truck for that.
It's a $100 gift card at that.
How about that?
I mean, that's worth it. Haven't seen Evan around the neighborhood lately. Hope he's okay, you know?
He's
I live
in
like 2 blocks
Irvington,
from
right?
him. Yeah, I'm like 2 blocks from him, almost like the next street over. Walk the dogs by his house on a daily basis. So, all right, good stuff. Check out the Podcast Center, 1075thefan.com. Jake and Jimmy at noon. JMV out of Colts Camp at 3. Have a good afternoon right here on The Fan.